5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
What? If you like your doctor, you will be able to keep your doctor.
What difference at this point does it make?
Doesn't make sense.
If you're looking to make sense out of what's going on in the world today, then you've come to the right place. Welcome to Southern Sense Talk Radio with your host, Annie, the radio chick Ubelis, and featuring Curtis C.S. Bennett and the most interesting guests that you'll find anywhere on Internet radio. And you can join the show and let your voice be heard by dialing 917-889-3675. So sit back, relax, and remember, Southern Sense is common sense.
When an emergency strikes, what's your first impulse? If your answer is run to the grocery store, you're likely to find chaos and plenty of empty shelves. So how do you avoid this? Well, it's simple. You use today to make a plan, to prepare for things that may happen. It's a hurricane, earthquake, blizzard, or even social unrest, especially in today's political environment. The practical place to start is by storing up food in your home. And I use My Patriot Supply for my food storage. If you don't have an emergency food supply, it's time to do so. Here's a great item that makes it really simple. A 2-week food kit that comes in a rugged tote. And it's only $75 when you go to my special website, preparewithsouthernsense.com, or call 888-441-7290. This food kit includes breakfast, lunch, and dinners that will last up to 25 years on your storage shelves. So order now and prepare yourself, and then rest easy. So it's very simple. Just call 888-441-7290 or go to preparewithsouthernsense.com. You know what? Let's make it even more simple than that. You're listening to my show, and it's called Southern Sense, and you know you put a dash in the middle, southern-sense.com, and click on the icon for My Patriot Food.
All right, welcome back to another adventure here with Annie Stop Screwing Up on Southern Sense. We are listening to us live on Blog Talk Radio, SHR Media, Lone Star Daily News, up on iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, YouTube. Oh, the heck with it. Just go to the name of the show. Put a dash in the middle, southern-sense.com. I'm the whack job, the radio chick, Annie. Along with my co-host, who's so patient and understanding, Curtis C.S. Bennett. Curtis, we're starting off on the right foot, aren't we?
Yeah. Well, I'm still trying to figure out how I can get on that defense team for Trump. I wasn't in on the call, but the way I look at it, those people on the other side, they weren't in on the call either. So I should be able to defend my president.
It is such a farce. I caught bits and pieces of it today. I overslept today, guys. Yes, I need my beauty sleep. That's why I've got the perfect voice for radio. I've got the perfect face for radio, I should say.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Curtis, for agreeing. You're a good pal. Anyway, and they had the ambassador Yovanovitch on, and oh, my God, what a ditz. I swear, she was an ambassador to another country representing the United States. She's a friggin' whack job. She serves at the pleasure of the president. There's no guarantee that once he steps into office, she would still have that position. And yet, he kept her there for a full 2 years later before he decided to replace her because he wasn't fulfilling his vision for our foreign policy. She doesn't make foreign policy. The President of the United States makes the foreign policy. It's not up to some diplomat or some staff member to make foreign policy for the United States of America. We elect the president to do that. And we choose the president because we agree with his or her foreign policy. Yes, it's a kick in the face to Hillary Clinton for that one anyway. But
yeah.
And they're making such a big deal about him dismissing her and replacing him with an equally incompetent Ambassador Taylor. He realized his mistake. He yanked Taylor out because he said, this is a dimwit. I don't know if he actually said that. I'm putting words in his mouth. But they serve...
Well, the thing about it is...
They're appointed.
This woman, she was fired. She was fired like 2 months before this controversial phone call to the Ukraine. So it's like one of the Republican senators said today, why is she here? This sounds more like a human resource issue. And it is. It has nothing to do with this, the sham of an impeachment that's going on. She has no knowledge of that.
Not only that, she actively tried to stop the Biden investigation, the Burisma investigation. She actively tried to stifle it. She's an Obama appointee. And as Sasquatch says in the chat room, and I said this on air many times, the moment Trump went in office, any and every Obama appointee should have been shown the door. He took his time doing that because he wanted a smooth transition. But now, President Trump, listen to me well. If you got any Obama holdovers that you have the ability to dismiss and reappoint someone that will carry out your policies, this is time to do it. It's the deep state stabbing you in the back, Mr. President. And we, the people, want you to lead this country. So please, sir, it is time for the Obama holdovers to get the boot in the butt and get kicked out the door. As a matter of fact, we've got two... I was going to do that a little bit of a lead-in because we've got two people that are close to the Obama administration, and I'm sure that they are listening now, and they will heed our words because we, the people, I'm talking about not just as a voter, not just as a radio host. I'm talking about a member, an active member and precinct chair in the Republican Party. I'm talking as a person that is a delegate to our state convention. I am talking as a Tea Party founder. I speak for we the people. It is time these holdovers go. They're hurting you, sir. And we don't want to see that. We want to see this country go on the road to the fantastic prosperity that you are leading us to. They're hindering you, sir, and this has got to stop.
Well, as the White House put out this morning in defense of Trump's action with this woman, Obama, when he first got in there, he went about dismissing every appointee that Bush had made. He had no problems with that, and the left didn't say a thing.
No.
So,
No.
I'm glad he was able to do that today.
Do you remember when Clinton took office? Every single typewriter and keyboard had the GWB removed from the keyboards. Do you remember that? And we were laughing about that.
I remember that.
Yeah.
And I remember how I think 500 lawyers got dismissed.
Yeah.
And
it's
you
time.
don't hear about that.
It's time they go. Anyway, we've got ourselves a rockin' and rolling show today. We're starting off, we're welcoming back Jessie Jane Duff, Gunnery Sergeant, retired, Jessie Jane Duff. She's coming in as a spokesperson for the RNC. She's also with Women for Trump, Veterans for Trump. She is a senior fellow at the Center for Policy, the London Center for Policy Research. And we got that following up with the pastor to the White House, and she's now in an interfaith position at the White House, Pastor Paula White-Cain. We're following that up with a confidant and friend of the president, Bill Gunasti, and we're closing out the show with two of your friends that are part of the 9/12 Project, as well as the Tea Party, Royal Brown and Glenda White. I mean, we've got a rockin' and rollin' show, and I'm telling you, folks, you got to tune in every Friday on this show between 3 and 6 p.m. because we are booked through the end of the month already in advance, and I've got people looking at December, and it is one big hit after another. We've got Kim Klayick, who's running for office in Maryland. Oh, God, I just had a brain fart. The congressman that just passed.
And Burke is always running for Congress, too.
Yeah, the congressman from Maryland, District 8, that just passed away. Major brain fart.
Okay, I know you're talking about Classic, whatever her name is, Kim
Klayick, but I'm trying to remember the name of the congressman that just passed away just this past month.
Elijah Cummings.
Thank you. Brain
Elijah
fart.
Cummings.
I got gray hairs, so I'm eligible to brain fart every now and then.
Yeah, he's the one that she's.
Yeah.
Well, his wife is trying to run for his position too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be an exciting race. We've got Nicole Mulakis, who's running in Staten Island over there. She's going to be on. Good Lord, I can't even think about half the dozen people that we've got already coming on. But it's going to be an action-packed day today. So anyway, if you're watching on Facebook, I'm battling a kitten right now. She's trying to climb on my lap. Baby puppy, come on, go back up. Anyway, this is live radio. You can't make it up. Anyway, folks, those that listen to the show know that we start off each and every show with a dedication to a fallen hero. Today's dedication is going to go out to two fallen heroes. It's going to go out to Sergeant Leandro Jasso and also to multitask K9 Mieko, who were killed on November 24th of last year while serving during Operation Freedom's Sentinel. And as I pull up the stuff, this is from the Army Times, and it starts off, in the final hours of Army Ranger Sergeant Leandro Jasso's life, he breached a small building in the southwestern edge of Afghanistan and engaged the heavily barricaded al-Qaeda fighters in close combat. Two of the enemy fighters were killed inside, but 3 attempted to flee, only to be gunned down by the isolation element as they exited the compound. Jasso's element consolidated as they took stock of the roughly 4-minute gunfight that yielded 5 enemy dead, recovered 1 M4 carbine with a thermal optic, 3 AK-47s, 1 PK machine gun, and multiple chest racks with magazines and assorted ammunition. The multi-purpose working dog that breached the building alongside them was mortally wounded in the exchange in the early hours of November 24th 2018. While clearing another building roughly an hour later, Jasso too would be mortally wounded by gunfire. This time, the shot came from a soldier with the Qatar Khas, an obscure but lethal Afghan partner force that accompanies Rangers in direct action raids across the country, according to a copy of the internal investigation into his death. It was obtained by the Army Times through a Freedom of Information Act request. The investigation details a time-sensitive raid that included hasty mission planning to adjust the helicopter landing zone, fleeing enemy fighters that proved difficult to track, and a strange scene in which the joint force tried to talk down a man in a large tree, even throwing a flashbang near him, only to find there was no man, just clothing items and a pair of shoes hanging below the branches. The person in the tree momentarily distracted the team while they were clearing a second structure. An enemy fighter, armed with an AK-47, emerged from a small room protruding from the building to spray the Rangers. In the ensuing gunfight, several Qatar Khan soldiers returned fire dangerously close to Jasso, who stood in a doorway approximately 10 to 12 feet from the enemy fighter. Jasso was a member of the 2nd Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment out of Joint Base Lewis McChord, Washington. He was on his 3rd deployment. His final raid came about 4 a.m. local time in the Kashrad district, a place not often visited by enemy forces these days. Jasso, an Afghan soldier, and another ranger were all wounded within 53 seconds of each other, prompting an immediate casualty evacuation. He was pronounced dead less than half an hour after being airlifted to a treatment facility in Helmand Province. Photos included in the investigation showed that a single 5.56 mm bullet was pulled from the left side plate pouch of Jasso's body armor. There is no evidence that the KAA, the Qatar Khan soldier, premeditated or purposely killed Sergeant Jasso, and there was no evidence specifically indicating which KKK soldier shot Sergeant Jasso. The investigating officer also wrote in his report, each of the Qatar Khan soldiers denied shooting the ranger. None of Jasso's actions on objective was found to be at fault in the death investigation. This is from Stripes. Earlier this year, Sergeant Leandro A.S. Jasso and some of his closest friends happened to be in their hometown at the same time and reunited at a bar. It was a special occasion. The 25-year-old Army Ranger was set to leave for his 3rd deployment overseas. Fearing for his safety during another long tour of duty, they asked him not to go, but it was to no avail. I knew he was doing what he loved, recalled longtime friend David Sorensen, 25. He always wanted to go and save people. In his short life, Lando left a deep, lasting impression in his hometown in central Washington state. Friends and mentors said. Sorensen was stunned by the news. I couldn't believe it. He was invincible, he said. Nobody could touch Lando. Jasso was remembered in the small town of Leavenworth as a bright, funny, driven, and loving friend who made everyone feel special. At Cascade High School, where Jasso attended, a moment of silence was held in his honor. And at the fire hall across the street from the school, where Jasso's brother and several friends once worked, the flag was lowered to half-staff. It's heart-wrenching. Lando was an incredibly charismatic human being, and it's hard to imagine someone like that was gone, said Andrea Brixley, an English teacher at the high school. It's like you feel a hole open up inside of you that you didn't even know was there. He was a wonderful kid. And this is also from Stripes. A U.S. military working dog was killed during a recent clash in Afghanistan, in which an American soldier also died, military officials confirmed, after the dog's unofficial biography began circulating on social media. Dog named Mieko, and Sergeant Leandro A.S. Jasso, who was assigned to the 75th Ranger Regiment's 25th Battalion, and whose death was previously reported, were fatally wounded during a raid against al-Qaeda militants in the northern Nimrud province on November 24th. The 7-year-old dog was leading Rangers into a compound where at least one militant fired at him, revealing the militant's position, which the Rangers then targeted, according to the biography of the dog. The actions of Mieko directly saved the life of his handler and of other Rangers involved in the clearance. A spokesman for the 75th Ranger Regiment at Fort Benning, Georgia, said they were still trying to determine who released the unauthorized biography of the multi-purpose canine, but said it was accurate. It was purported to be a photo of the Dutch-born dog that was published on Facebook page. U.S. Army WTF Moments. A representative of the site declined to say how they had gotten the materials. Jasso was not Mieko's handler. Preliminary reports indicated that his death was caused by an Afghan forces who accidentally shot him during a close-quarter firefight against one of multiple barricaded al-Qaeda shooters. Like many of his human counterparts, Mieko had served multiple tours in Afghanistan, 6 in total, and conducted over 50 Ranger-led raids. He had the most training and combat experience of any dog with the battalion at the time of his death. Rest assured, Mieko never backed down from a fight with the enemy, training or combat. He embodied what it means to be a Ranger. While many dogs are trained for a specific task, multi-purpose canines like Mieko are highly skilled and must undergo a rigorous selection process, like the Rangers they assist. Mieko had been trained in patrolling, tracking, bomb detection, and apprehension functions, and had used these skills on several occasions, including clearing buildings. Mieko, who had worked with the 5 Ranger handlers over his career, was remembered for his rock-solid consistency and forgiving nature. There was not a day that passed when he was not 100% committed to giving everything he had, regardless of how hot it was, how long the operation was, or how many buildings needed to be cleared. Mieko's loss is devastating, but the results of Mieko's willingness to operate without guard for his own well-being were tangible. It is an empty kennel. Husbands coming home to their wives, kids getting to see their fathers once more, and the Rangers getting to live to fight another day. It was Mieko's task. Today's show is dedicated to Canine Mieko and to Sergeant Leandro Jasso. It is also dedicated to all of the brave men and women out there serving in our military, from the birth of this nation through today and into its future. We also dedicate it to all the brave men and women that serve as our first responders, be they law enforcement, firefighters, or emergency services. We can never say thank you enough. May God bless each and every one. And we dedicate to them this song by Todd Allen Harrington, My Name is America.
Born in the grip of oppression, I fought for my liberty. I paid with the blood of my people. Freedom has never been free. Now my door's always open to dreamers and friends. When I'm attacked, I protect and defend. Because my name is America. I stand proud and free. My name is America. Don't tread on me. I cannot be broken. I cannot be shamed. If you hurt me, I'll get stronger, and I'll rise up from the flames, and I'll always stand proud and free. I'm America, don't tread on me. America is my name. My strength was not taken from others. Others gave it to me. They believe in the virtues I stand for. My respect for humanity. Now I'm challenged by tyrants who envy my power, but their vicious deeds become my finest hour. Because my name is America. I stand proud and free. My name is America. Don't tread on me. I cannot be broken. I cannot be shamed. If you hurt me, I'll get stronger, and I'll rise up from the flames, and I'll always stand proud and free. I'm America, don't tread on me. America is my name. For those who need me, I'll always be here. For those who will harm me, I'll face without fear. But I'll always stand proud and free. I'm America, don't tread on me. I'm America, yes, America is my name. Is my
And we're back. You're here listening to Southern Sense here on Blog Talk Radio, SHR Media, Lone Star Daily News, up on iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, YouTube, Facebook. Oh, the heck with it. Just go to the name of the show, put a dash in the middle, southern-sense.com. I also want to let you know we're also up on Restream. And, oh, interesting. My buddy Joe Goldner, who happens to be sitting in the chat room on Blog Talk Radio, is running for sheriff in Broward County. And I know if Joe wins, he will be no coward from Broward. So, Joe, how is that for,
All right.
for you? Oh, man. We've, like I said, Curtis, we've got a whopping show here going on today. I'm just waiting for Jessie to call in. Jessie Jane Duff, former Marine Gunnery Sergeant, is also up with Veterans for Trump, Women for Trump, and she's also a senior fellow at the London Center for Policy. And oh my goodness, there's so much to talk about, Curtis. I mean, it's crazy out there.
Yeah. You heard about Roger Stone, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, Roger Stone has been found guilty of all 7 counts of the charges against him by a jury. And it's a shame. it is definitely a shame. I'm just looking at some messages that are coming through with the through some people over here. Anyway,
And I just met the guy about a month ago.
Yeah, Roger had been a guest on the show a couple of times.
He's like a stand-up guy.
Yeah, he's been on the show a few times, and I'm sorry to see that he got himself convicted. He is a flamboyant person, and unfortunately, I think he kind of like shot himself in the foot by being as flamboyant as he has been. So I'm sorry to see that, because he can face up to 20 years in prison for that.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a shame. So we'll see what happens. You know, I think one of the things he was hoping for was a pardon from Trump, and I think that's putting all
and
of
that
your...
still may come.
Yeah, it's a possibility, but you can't hang everything you have on just that, because it puts Trump also in a precarious position. Here he is going through an impeachment hearing, and is that the wisest thing to do at this point in time? His sentencing isn't until February, so we've got, trying to prognosticate this far in advance is kind of foolish, honestly. So, anything can happen between now and February 20th when he goes for sentencing.
Well, what I'm thinking is that when Trump finishes his second term, I think he'll pardon him just before he leaves. Then, he would. What would he care, about the repercussions of the left-wing media about it? Obama, he pardoned quite a few people that were criminals, true criminals, on the way out the door. So I think he may wait to the very end.
And Bush did the same thing, honestly. He did the very same thing. He waited until he was going out the door before he did the pardon or anything. So, yeah.
Right, and that way, you can still say the man served some time.
Mm-hmm.
You can still say he served 4 years, so let him go,
No, I don't think Roger...
Hillary, look at her. Hillary, all Roger that she Stone committed, and she's still walking free.
Yeah, but I don't think Roger Stone ever did time. They released him the very next morning.
Well, he's going to be sentenced here sometime soon. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
He just was adjudicated guilty. So there's got to be a sentencing phase.
Well, actually, he's going to be going for sentencing on February 20th. But it looks like I may have to call our guest. So if that case, I'm going to play Big Don, and we'll be back as soon as I get a hold of Jessie, and let's see what happens.
All righty.
Well, let's see what happens. Come on.
Big Don. Big Don. Every morning on time, you can see him arrive. He stood 6'3" and weighed 235, kind of broad at the shoulder and fast with the lip. And everybody knew you didn't give no shit to Big Don. Big Don, Big Don, Big Bad Don. Through the dust and the smoke of this Democrat hell walked a giant of a man that the Patriots knew well, grabbed a sagging economy and let out with a groan, and like a mighty oak tree just stood there alone, Big Don. I'm talking about our man Donald Trump. He's the president now, and all you chumps can just settle down and stay in your safe space. We're about to make America a better place with Big Don. Big Don, Big Don, Big Bad Don. Well, old Don got to work because we got problems to be solved, and the Democrats shouted, "The Russians are involved," brought out their special counsel with Robert Mueller. Too bad the wall just got 10 feet taller with Big Don.
Well, they will lie and cheat and steal and threaten and pander to illegals before our veterans, but we're over these liberals loading our country in a hearse. It's about time to put America first with Big Don. Big Don, Big Don, Big Bad Don. We're gonna put these criminals where they belong. We got people like Hannity and Julian Assange and all the centipedes following QAnon, and Americans like me just singing my song for Big Don. The path ain't easy cause the devil's working hard, but we got God on our side and he's playing his trump card. Just remember, my countrymen, to always stick together. Fake news can't stop us from making this world better with Big Don. Big Don, Big Don, Big Bad Don. When it's all said and done, America will be great, and we'll build a statue just to commemorate a great man with these words on the slate. Thanks to the people's power, a man came from his tower to save America in its final hour. Big Don. Big Don. Big Don. Big Bad Don.
All right, and we're back. You're here listening to Southern Sense. You're live on Blog Talk Radio, SHR Media, the Lone Star Daily News, up on iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, YouTube. Oh, just go to the name of the show, put a dash in the middle, southern-sense.com. I'm your hostess with the mostest, the radio chick Annie, along with my co-host, the one, the only C.S. Bennett. And we've got here Curtis on the line with us, returning one of our show favorites, retired Gunnery Sgt, USC, hoorah, Jessie Jane Duff. Good afternoon, Jessie. How are you today?
Good afternoon. I'm fabulous. How is everything today?
Oh, man, it's
fine,
crazy.
Gunny.
It is crazy out there, Gunny. I'm telling you, it is absolutely nuts out there. Did you, I know you had to catch the impeachment hearings. Is that not a farce or what?
I watched as much as I could stomach. I had to kind of keep going back and forth because it really was dry, very repetitive, very annoying too. The way Adam Schiff was cutting off the New York Congresswoman and not giving her an opportunity to question the witness. But what really disappointed me more than anything was there was this long introduction segment by the Democrat counsel of asking her, how did that make you feel? And how were you feeling about this? And how did that make you feel? Like, when you were let go, how did that make you feel? I don't care how it made her feel. It doesn't matter to me. For somebody who has been reprimanded more than enough times that I could shake a stick at, I've been reprimanded so many times in my entire life that it gets to a point where you just don't remember it anymore, and you shut down your feelings and you keep marching. You get over it. She's actually going to testify in Congress. How she felt, how she feels is irrelevant. If she has a perspective that the president did, he hurt her feelings, it bothered her, well, get over it, shake it off. We all been there. We've all been there on some level. But everybody said she was going to cry. That was the other thing, because apparently behind closed doors she was a big sloppy mess. So I'm sorry, I would have had to pass. I would have brought the biggest Costco box of Kleenex I could have found, and I would have been sitting there just waiting for my opportunity. I would have got up, walked over there, said, here's some Kleenex in case I make you cry, because I probably will. Then I would have gone back to my seat. Then, of course, Adam Schiff would have hit the gavel. Yeah, then Adam Schiff would have hit the gavel, and he would have been like, you're out of order, you're out of order. I'll say, do you want me to go get my Kleenex back? I've heard she cries a lot. I just want to make sure she's ready, because I've got some daggers here. I would have been just awful.
I would have added, do you need a safe space?
Yeah, exactly. But, she didn't cry. I give her a lot of credit. She didn't. She obviously got that so far out of her system, she couldn't even fake a tear, fortunately. But, boy, were they trying to get her to cry, because she kept getting, because if you were watching the Democratic Council in the very beginning, he asked repeatedly how it made her feel, whatever situation she was asked. And when she was let go, when she had to abruptly get on the plane, when she had to do this, how did it make you feel? What were you thinking? Where did it make it? Like, they wanted her to start crying. And, she didn't, because she probably heard all the commentators say that she's going to be a big slobbery mess. So she got her act together. And honestly, I just was a little bit dismayed that Adam Schiff even allowed I'm surprised he's even allowed it to go public, because the fact is that he's still doing such underhanded, sleazy tactics in this whole thing. It's just dismaying to me. It's very dismaying to me. I've even seen libertarians on Twitter tweet, even though they don't necessarily agree with the president, this sham will make them never vote Democrat again. It's disgusting to a lot of people, because they do know that the president has not been afforded due process. They also know that this quote-unquote witnessed nothing. There was also a reporter on OAN who tweeted out that she'd like to ask her a question about her Hillary Clinton party she had planned for when Hillary won. She wanted to ask her, she says, I've gathered that you planned out a party, and I'd like to know how you are so nonpartisan. The list goes on and on. She had a 3-year tenure. She actually did do 3 years. The fact that President Trump had offered to have her go to 2020 and it didn't happen, and now they're all dismayed. Let's just question every ambassador then who was let go by President Obama, President Clinton, President Bush. Let's go through all of them, because I'm sure they all felt a little bruised. I just don't have time to listen to bruised egos talk about how they don't like how they were fired. Somebody needs to call me, because I could give some very interesting stories about being let go. I was let go from a contract for being a Trump supporter, a very well-known federally funded research and development center right here in McLean, Virginia. Let me go because I was a Trump supporter. Of course, they don't tell you that, but you find out through the back channels. So get over it, lady. That's really all I got to say.
Well, Jessie, can you imagine if that was a Republican asking those questions of a Democrat female? You'd hear misogyny, bigot, you would hear everything hurled at them. How dare you think a woman would be able to, would break down when placed in a position of power and then questioned about what she did with her duties? As a cop, if I had someone, I would have been laughed out of the precinct. You in the Marine Corps, you would have been laughed out of the Corps.
Oh, yeah.
How embarrassing.
It is. And talking about her feelings on this really shows to the level they've stooped to, because they have nothing else. So let's just criminalize. Let's impeach so basically, are they saying to me that they need to impeach the president because he hurt Yovanovitch's feelings? That's what it sounds like, because that's all they got. Guilty. I hurt her feelings. She got canned. Let's bring up everybody who got fired from The Apprentice. Let's go through them now. Oh, I shouldn't give them any ideas. The next hearings will be if everybody was fired from The Apprentice, and how it was so inappropriate to do that on camera in front of public space. We have to impeach this man. That's what they're down to. And it's a gas. It's just, it would be, and not only that, they quote people who have been in the hearings have said people are actually falling asleep in the audience, because it's so dry and boring. When I've listened to Yovanovitch, she's really just repeating herself over and over. It's a different line of questioning that's the same question, just a different way that each side is presenting it. And each side has pretty much reinforced their position. The Democrats have reinforced that she wasn't happy about being let go, and the Republicans have reinforced that she was let go before any of this happened. That's really what it boils down to. So, there's no there. Yovanovitch, and then I've gathered that, maybe you had heard of how Judicial Watch had found that she had essentially also had spied on many conservative, or was it their tweets, or I'm trying to recall the information Judicial Watch had exposed about Seth Gorka, Jack Posobiec with OAN, and several other conservative reporters that apparently they were monitoring. And she was a part of that. So there's a lot of dirty that's tied to this lady, and there was a lot of reason why President Trump was not confident in her anymore. She was a part of a lot of the awareness of the corruption that was currently going on, and apparently even when she went up to get confirmed as an ambassador, they peppered her with questions to get ready on the corruption that went on with Hunter Biden. They were fully aware that Hunter Biden was doing some nefarious deeds, that apparently Obama was very uncomfortable with him being part of the energy company that was apparently supposed to influence for the sole purpose of influencing the Obama-Biden administration. So before she got confirmed, they gave her a round of questions so she could be ready for it when confronted with it on how she was going to handle that or how she was going to approach that or what was her awareness of that. You know, the whole thing is tragic that we've reached this point. It's really tragic because if we don't protect and defend this president, then what's going to happen the next time? It's going to become great havoc. It's not that we don't have enough havoc in Washington, D.C. already as it is, but it's going to come to a point where Republicans will do this to the next president, and then it's going to be a ping-pong match on who's going to undermine whom. We basically will nullify the position of being even a president if this is the type of behavior that we're going to be able to impeach one over. This is really a reckless operation that the Democrats are pulling, and there has to be somebody on their side that realizes this.
Jessie, you're too docile. Why don't you tell us what you really think?
Oh my gosh, you need me to take it up a notch? Be careful. Well, this is pillow talk. This is Jessie Duff's pillow talk right now. I'm being gentle.
Take us back to
I'm being sweet over here. This is pillow talk. This is just, you know, if we were in a relationship, you would be like, oh, she's happy, everything's good. Yeah, this is normal. This is the normal. This is why I don't go home often for, you know, holidays. If there's any Democrats in the room, they're like, oh, righty, we know Jessie's here. They clear out. Well, you know, actually, it's just, you know, when we look at all of this, it is disgusting. And all of the Democrats with a reasonable brain out there know that this is a very high-risk move. This is a politically a huge risk. They know that it's undermining themselves for 2020. They know that the message has gotten out. I mean, President Trump's donations actually have gone up.
Yep.
His ratings have gone up. The stock market has done better. He even said in his rally last night in Louisiana that his guys are saying, hey, sir, have the impeachment hearings go longer. You're doing great in the polls. It's like, he's like, no, we don't want to. But they're like, sir, the ratings are going up. Your poll numbers are going up. I mean, but it's not the way we want to run a country. We want Congress to pass laws and do things. They're supposed to be lawmakers that ensure that we get things done. Like the Mexico-Canada operation that we're still sitting on the table by Nancy Pelosi, she won't even bring up to a vote. Won't even bring it up for a vote. They're supposed to get rid of NAFTA. You know, it's the UCM, I can't even say it because it's USMCA. It confuses me because it's the acronym for the Marine Corps and then an A at the end of it. But it's, you know, it's the Mexico-Canada agreement. And this would bring 168,000 jobs to the United States and $10 billion worth of revenue. What are they doing? Sitting on it. You know, they can't have this man have a success. What about prescription medication? They've got that bill up there that's supposed to lower the high cost of prescription drugs. And anybody who knows anyone who has to pay out of pocket for prescription medication, it is debilitating on top of whatever they already have to deal with as their chronic illness. So I'm amazed that the Democrats are really floating everything on this. The goal was to have it done by Christmas. Something tells me they will be done by Christmas. You know, they've dug their graves. And this is the fourth time that they have put forward an effort to impeach the president. There were 3 other bills that they had tried to pass on the House floor before. So make no mistake, when Nancy Pelosi says nobody comes to Washington, D.C. to impeach a president, I dare to say this was the plan ever since he got elected. And many of those are newly elected members like Rashid Tlaib, who we heard say, F this man, I'm going to get him the F out of there. She cursed his name, and her goal upon election was to impeach the president. Instead of looking out for her constituents, her goal was to impeach the president, which is upside down. You were going there to represent your constituents and benefit them.
Well, just think back. In Texas, they fired a rodeo clown for wearing an Obama mask during a rodeo. They fired this poor man for simply wearing a costume mask. And here you've got them so rabid that it just boggles the imagination. And you have AOC says, hey, listen, this is a cause that we can rally behind to unite the Democrats to take the 2020 elections. She's saying, let's do this.
She's living in fantasy world.
But as you mentioned before,
that's a fantasy.
The fundraising in the 24 hours after the impeachment hearing and on Wednesday, within 24 hours of it starting, the the Trump campaign raked in $3.1 million in 24 hours from small donors, not a major donor. These are people sending $5, $10, $15, $40, maybe $50. But these are small donors, $3.1 million. Can you imagine the number of people to get that amount of money? This is a wake-up call.
Oh, absolutely. And the average donation too, is actually about $40-some-odd, and over half of his donors are women. So, there is absolutely a surge of support for this president. People know he's not being treated fairly.
And it just gets crazier. But how did you like the therapy dogs that were sent to D.C.? I mean, that just floored me. I mean, therapy dogs, really? Are you that traumatized because the president made a remark on a phone that didn't even involve you? You are so friggin' traumatized between a conversation of one president of their country and another president of our country. That is how horrific this man is.
I don't know that they're so traumatized as much as they're trying to exploit a situation and mislead the American people. If you repeat a lie long enough, people will believe it. And the Democrats have just gotten so buckled down. Adam Schiff really has believed this is a corrupt man in his heart and soul. I believe that Adam Schiff believes that. And he's making a case based upon his beliefs versus a case based upon facts. So it's an emotional thing. It's like an old girlfriend who's been jilted and swears her boyfriend was cheating on her. She's going to do everything she can to prove he was cheating. She's going to dig through his laundry, dig through his phone messages, dig through his bills. She's going to keep digging, and even though he has a restraining order on her and cameras showing her digging through everything to prove her case. And that's Adam Schiff. He's digging through everything, and we see what he's doing, and every single thing that he is doing is fraudulent and misleading, trying to convince the American people because he keeps coming up dry. He's based an entire case upon his belief, and the Democrats have believed this since day one, along with the Never-Trumpers, because they do not want somebody who came here and disrupted their boat. They had a nice little cruise ship that was floating along with no disruption. And here comes President Trump saying, you're not going to waste the taxpayers' dollars on this cruise ship that you guys are excessively overspending, excessively overusing, and exploiting the American people for your own power and gain. So he's what's called the iceberg, and they're on the Titanic. The iceberg is just peeking a little bit out of the water. They're not afraid of it. What they don't realize is it's deep under the water, and he's got them. That maybe not the best analogy for anybody who feels that it's in being insensitive, but the demise of the Democrats is that they are in absolute denial of what they are presenting as being an emotional argument that they're trying to substantiate with some form of fact, and they don't have any fact. This is why when you're emotional, you shouldn't be making decisions. When you become emotional, like anybody who's been through a divorce or a breakup, I reference that, we get irrational because it becomes emotional, and we don't look at the bigger picture, and your entire credibility can be destroyed based upon false allegations. And if this has not gotten even probably some of the most diehard Democrats on board of rethinking the leadership that they have elected into office when they realize they've accomplished nothing because they've been so derailed with trying to derail the president that they're doing nothing for the American people. They're sitting up in Washington, D.C., making, an average of $140,000 to $170,000 a year just to create chaos. That's an embarrassment.
That it is. And the worst part is, for the Democrats, is that it's sending people over to the Republican Party that say, we're going to vote for Trump when it comes to 2020 elections. You've got the black community is flocking in droves. You're getting the religious Hispanic community flocking in droves because they're finding out that our values are, in fact, their values. So they're shooting themselves in the foot, and I'm cheering them all along. I said, keep it going, guys. You're helping our cause.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I like to believe that they're helping our cause, but I just can't underestimate any of these people. You know, they're convincing somebody that they're in the right. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing this. They have to have had enough gin in their juice to feel drunk on this power. And somehow, somewhere, they've gotten enough of that they have some substantive donors or power behind them, because recklessness does not increase your capability of respect with the American people that have elected you. And, you know, when you watch these Trump rallies and you see the phenomenal throng of support for him, Louisiana last night was just another example of many. People get excited when this man speaks. They get excited with his candor. They get excited with he reads the script, then he goes off the script. Then he reads the script, then he goes off the script. He personalizes his message. He personalizes who he meets. And people know when he says, this is not about destroying me, they are trying to destroy you. And they understand that he has made this about the American people, and their freedom is being attacked by the socialist left that wants to have more government control, more government regulation, higher taxes. They're actually running on higher taxes. They're offering this complete fraudulent medical plan that would cost American tax. It would remove over 200 million Americans off of their private health insurance and cost us anywhere between $33 trillion or the $50 trillion potentially that Elizabeth Warren's plan would cost. Where will that money come from? They've done surveys and show that well over half of the people that want this Medicare for all are not willing to pay higher taxes. So that is the mindset. Give me, give me, give me, but don't ask me what I have to contribute to get. And this is, again, like the jilted person who has been in a dead-end relationship that realized they gave everything and got nothing in return.
Well, Jessie, I haven't gotten you riled up enough. So we just got about 3 minutes left, and I'm going to read you something from Kamala Harris. And I'm going to let you lose. Gunny, you're our show's pit bull. This is what she said to her constituents in a speech she gave in California. We have a nation of baby killers through our military. Our soldiers have become nothing more than a collection of evil, sadistic monsters whose sole purpose of existence is to maim and slaughter. And she goes on, they enjoy it. I've seen it in their vacant, soulless eyes. Our soldiers are completely dead inside. There are millions of Satan and are so because we have allowed it indeed. Leaders like Trump have encouraged it. And these demons reflect on our nation as a whole in the eyes of the world. She gets even worse. Foreign nationals see Americans as bloodthirsty zombies. And this is largely because of our military, which has no compassion and no empathy. And I'm sick of it. No longer should we liken to these cowardly animals in uniform. I aim to stop this and to the military's carnage across the globe. When I become president, I will immediately cut the defense budget in half. I'll take it away, all the shiny new toys. I'll cut the numbers of personnel. I'll make them wish they never joined up because the Kamala Harris military will be absolutely miserable. Oh, my God.
Oh, okay. So I guess may she rest in peace because she just killed her presidential bid. That is just almost, it would almost be comical if it wasn't true. This woman is trying to run to be the commander-in-chief and has just made a blanket statement about 22.5 million veterans along with the 1% that serves this nation. I mean, I can give you example after example of heroic efforts that are active duty and reserves who have been called active duty have contributed to save the lives of others and what they have done to ensure that our freedom has been intact, what they've done to help others have freedom. There's many foreigners that would give their right arm, including apparently her own mother, to come to this country because of the freedom that we have. And for her to say something like that, I would dare to say her mother didn't move to this nation expecting that her daughter would run around saying we must abolish the very military that ensured that this country has the freedom that it does now, that's in place. I mean, it's just kind of mind-numbing to hear that. I can't even comment with harsh enough words because you'd have to bleep out most of them, and that probably would not be good radio. But I would say that it's disappointing that that's who she truly is. She has lost now the potential nomination to ever be president of the United States, because those words will haunt her. It will be the ghost of Kamala Harris, because now every single defense city that depends upon the defense industry, those people that are building our aircraft, those people that are ensuring that our military is the best equipped, the best informed, the best capable. You're talking about now folks that are working in the intelligence agency that ensure that our military is always in out of harm's way. For her to suggest that we are just baby killers, I mean, what is this, Vietnam 2.0? It's a tragic comment on her part, and, she just basically put a stake in her own heart, and that's her own fault.
It's amazing that, she is so blinded by hatred that she would make this statement so publicly and think it's acceptable.
I don't even know that she hates as much as she just wants to win, and she probably has surrounded herself by like-minded, tree-hugging, pot-smoking people. No disrespect. I'm sorry. I'm trying to paint a stereotype of the '60s love child. That's what I'm trying to paint. Not suggesting everybody that smokes marijuana is a tree hugger. But what I am suggesting is that she has surrounded herself by such left-wing mindsets. Less than 1% of this nation serves. That means she probably doesn't even know anybody who has ever served on active duty, let alone somebody who has served this nation in a manner for her to respect. It sounds a lot like what Hillary Clinton tried to do when she was the first lady and they didn't want anybody in the military in the White House in uniforms. There were things like that where you could just see the disdain in their eyes for the active duty military. This has been well reported by many people who were in the White House, just the attitude towards the military. So, it's like she's not even worth our conversation because she's falling apart in the polls. She's already had to dismantle her campaign, as I recall, in different locations. It's been reported that it's nothing but chaos and disorder. She's not going to win. And if it wasn't just for that comment, it's just for her ideology that does not gel with the American people. None of those candidates are going to win. Why we even waste our air on them? They've demonstrated that they don't have the best interests of Americans at heart, and President Trump's economy is rocking and rolling. And when you have 22.5 million veterans with the lowest unemployment rate now ever in the history of the United States, and you have the lowest unemployment rate for women, African Americans, Asians, Latinos, let me just cross the board here, American lowest unemployment rate, and our wages are going up because of the tax cuts. And when you start looking at all of the benefits we have, who's going to mess with that unless they buy into some socialist agenda that suddenly the government can provide more? That's not how it works. We're a country that has now got production back in this country. We have 500,000 new manufacturing jobs. They lost 200,000 alone in the last 2 years of the Obama administration. I read somewhere that they had over 20 million jobs lost to China in the first decade of 2000 to 2010. When you're looking at your neighbor unemployed, your neighbor across the street unemployed, guess what? Your property values go down. Now unemployment is back. People's wages are up. Kamala, you offer nothing but to slash the Defense Department in half? That's just insane.
It is, absolutely. You also mentioned, I want to go back just a little bit because you mentioned the USMCA, and Pelosi kind of like dangled the fish before us after the impeachment hearings on Wednesday. Now, Mexico has already signed it. Canada is poised to sign it. And Pelosi, I honestly think Pelosi dangled that stinky fish in front of us just to take attention off the impeachment because she saw maybe how bad it's going. She may try to bring the USMCA up on the floor. What's your thoughts?
I suspect she's stuck something dirty in it. I think that she may have made a compromise with the unions. She's probably, because I had heard the same rumor that she was going to try to get it to the floor fast. And the first question that came out of the group's mouth that I work with on watching these very things was, what the heck is she putting in there? And there are things that I would expect are bad. One of the things we have to be very careful for are the ominous bill that the president promised he would not sign. Again, well, now they're doing baby ominous bills. They're breaking them down into smaller pieces. Our debt and deficit is now at record highs. So the spending has to now be put in a way where we know we can get out of this. Our GDP cannot be below what our debt and deficit is. It is putting us in a position where we can we can collapse. So I dare to say that she's going to try to sneak something in there, and who knows what the heck it is.
Well,
for all we know, it'd be a DACA amnesty again. Who knows?
Curtis, you got a question? Curtis?
Well, I want to know what you would have said, Gunny, if you were interviewing this woman this morning.
Which one? Which crazy one?
I need a space woman.
Oh, Yovanovitch.
What's the one question you would have wanted to ask her? Right.
I really would just say, so apparently you're very emotional because you feel alive. Because you testified here on how you feel. Yeah, it sucks to get fired, doesn't it? Can you tell me how many Americans have been dismissed? Can you tell me how many Americans have lost their jobs this year? You're not the first one to go through that. How do you feel about others? You ask, how long was your appointment? She'll say 3 years. How long did you serve? She would say 3 years. Who appointed you? Barack Obama. Did you have any concern when President Trump was elected that you would actually be extended? You probably didn't even expect that. And then not only that, the person that they replaced her with was also a former Obama person. It wasn't a Taylor, the one that was testifying, was it yesterday, their star witness. He's the one that has replaced her. Well, it doesn't sound like we've got some kind of plan here to get Trump people in there. We put another career diplomat in her place. So, there's just a lot of questions that would just run through my head, but I just think it's a waste of time. We're looking, every question that needed to be asked was already asked. Did she overhear any collusion? Did she ever hear about any crimes? Did she ever hear about any bribery? Because they've had to change the wording language now from quid pro quo to now bribery. I would ask her specifically the same thing that the senators and congressmen have asked her. Did you witness any of this? Did you overhear any of this? And her answer has repeatedly been no. And Devin Nunes said it best after he asked her 3 or 4 multiple questions. It's been tweeted out by the White House and other people that have been in the hearings. Essentially, it's his line of questioning. She answers repeatedly no, 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 no to overhearing any of this. And then he says, so I dare to say, why are you a witness here since you didn't see anything? I dare to say that there's no reason for you to be here. And the look on her face was a little aghast. Because, the sun, the moon, and the stars revolve around her emotion. Anyway, well, I think we've covered it. The hearings are a joke. They've embarrassed themselves. And there's not much we just have to now make sure that the Republicans keep driving it home and keep getting in front of the press. I will say, for the first time, I'm proud to see the Republicans rally harder than they've ever tried before. Prior to this, we saw people like the Paul Ryans running around and dismissing the president and sending out casual tweets of disgust. And now we finally got all the Republicans realizing if you allow this to happen, you will never get your democracy back. And they finally realized this president is the only person who has been able to do that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the left is crying all the way to the paycheck they cash as members of Congress and the Senate. And it's become a farce. I mean, I voted for Reagan the first time. So that I've seen quite a lot. But to see the political environment that I see today, I thought the 70s were bad. But this is just absolutely crazy. But his rallies are getting bigger and bigger and bigger than when he ran as a candidate.
Yeah.
And it shows the support of the American people.
Yeah, people are...
Go ahead.
Yep, and they're outside waiting, too. They not only are they inside, they have sometimes as many people outside in overflow. And it's pretty impressive to see that the American people are fed up with this. If you hate this president, for whatever reason it may be, I can only ask you, if it's based upon an emotional reason, that's not logical. If it's based upon something that you heard about in the 70s, or if you heard about in the 60s, it's not logical. Or, not the 70s, I'm sorry, even the 80s, some of the things that, he may have said, on the camera, the camera that, what was that, the webcam. Well, no, what am I trying to say? The Bush tapes, remember Reggie Bush,
oh, yeah.
Help me out here, people.
Yeah, you're talking about...
Yeah, to grab them by the P word. Yeah, if that's all you've got, then you have nothing. Because he wasn't an elected official. That was a hot mic. That was in the 80s. And I dare to say, we didn't even know what the Me Too movement was in the 80s. We were offensive people in the 80s. Anybody remember sitting around, or is it just me, that remember sitting around the dining room table and hearing jokes that would be considered highly inappropriate by today's standards? So, you're sitting back, and it's like basically saying you're offended that George Washington was a slaveholder. Compared to today's standards, it is, but compared to the standard of which this nation was founded, that is a tragedy that has happened, but it doesn't mean he was an individual who was a horrible person based upon the history of our country. What made slavery so horrible was that the society throughout the world tolerated it. Not one individual, societies. Societies such as Europe, Africa, everywhere you went, the slave trade was something that people had accepted. So you cannot sit here and go by today's standard to judge what often was considered acceptable under maybe two, 3, 4 decades ago. And I see that happen all the time. I don't even care what Joe Biden said in the 80s. I don't even care what he said in the 90s for that matter. He can't even get it straight in 2019. He says flat out, poor kids are as smart as white kids. You don't need to go back to the busing issue, Kamala Harris. Right there. Poor kids are as smart as white kids. Boom, 2019. That's what you got to worry about. There's a lot of offensive things that our country has had happen, and we could debate all of those things, horrible things. At the same time, you got to look at how society had to slowly pivot and slowly change and recognize, and even our founding fathers set up that we had a Declaration of Independence and a Constitution that were created so that we could change, that we could become better. They weren't set up in a way that we were bound to things that may not have been the best mindset for our nation. But, I regress. It's like President Trump. If people don't like him, it's always based upon something of the past or something that he says at a rally. They want a scripted politician. Look at his policies, because guess what? I don't care what this man has said or what he has tweeted. Look at the fact you have a job. Look at your economy. Look at your prosperity. The actions are louder than words.
That is absolutely true. I want to bring another little bit of a subject, because you mentioned the Constitution, the Bill of Rights.
I do have another call coming in, so I'm going to have to go. I have another interview coming up, so I have about 1 more minute that I can probably contribute.
All right, just the recent court ruling that is saying Remington is guilty because that was the weapon used in a shooting. That's an assault directly on the Second Amendment.
What was the ruling? I'm sorry, I didn't. You said there was a ruling about a weapon?
The Supreme Court was hearing a case involving Remington and the Sandy Hook shootings. And okay. I don't see the Supreme Court ruling against the Second Amendment in any way, shape, or form. We have enough judges that are conservative that support the Second Amendment, and I don't expect that it's going to be anything different. Trying to blame a gun maker for... Well, unfortunately, the Supreme Court said the case should go forward. So the case will be going back to the regional court.
Well, I'm not aware of the case, so I really can't comment on it right now. But I do have a call coming in. It is an interview, so I do have to get going. But please do invite me back anytime again. I welcome it.
Absolutely. I'll get a hold of Gabriel.
Oh, certainly.
Absolutely, Gunny.
Take
you. Take care, and God bless. All right, Curtis. It looks like it could be a problem with Paula, because she does have a White House appointment, so she could be caught up in that. And I sent her agent a couple of messages. Now, he reassured me last night that she would be on. It's a shame that we don't have her. But the show must go on.
And I left the number just in case, she becomes free or, wherever she is now, she can call in.
Well, I just want to follow up on what I was talking about, but the Supreme Court has ruled the guns and Second Amendment is now one of the top most critical issues in our nation. And this is from Tea Party PAC. And they reported that this was also up on InfoWars. On Tuesday, the highest court in the U.S. refused to halt the lawsuit filed by the parents of slain students against the Remington Arms Company, which alleges the company promoted the Bushmaster AR-15 rifle for use in assaults against human beings. I've never known a gun manufacturer, unless it's in defense of an individual, I've never known a gun manufacturer to say, well, let's go out and do a school shooting, folks. This is the perfect weapon for it. They'd be off their minds. They would have a whole passel of lawyers saying, hey, listen, this is poor advertising. And if you don't think a large company like Remington won't run an ad past a couple of their lawyers saying, do we have any liability if we run this ad? It would be stupid.
Well, the whole nature, the nature of their business, a gun will kill if the bullet strikes the target, if it's a animated organic target. But no, they shouldn't be held responsible no more than the company that makes tools for surgeons. It should be the individual that should be held accountable.
How about someone that has a DUI, hits someone, kills the individual? So are you going to hold Ford, GM, Mercedes-Benz, Volkswagen, Toyota, Honda, any of those companies that manufacture the cars that kill someone liable? It makes absolutely no sense.
Well, I think...
Go ahead.
I think the Supreme Court is pretty much saying let the process go. And I believe if it does ever get to the Supreme Court level, then they'll rule against this lawsuit.
Well,
but the process, you're free to sue whoever you want.
Well, here's the crux of the matter. But you may not like the end results. Well, here's the crux of the matter. The Remington lawyers have argued a 2005 law protecting the company and firearms manufacturer from being held liable for crimes committed by gun purchasers. And it's exactly this law that Congress enacted to ensure that firearms are so central to our society, to our rights as American citizens. And I remember after the Sandy Hook shootings that they were all pushing for the manufacturers to be held liable. So Congress went forward and said in 2005, no, you can't do that. They're not responsible for an individual's action. It's like if you have a company that makes opioids and an individual overdoses on the opioids, are you going to hold the company that manufactured that medication responsible for someone doing something they knew to be wrong? I mean, you purchase a gun for defense, for hunting, for protection. And if you're in the military, you use it to get your job done, which is to kill people. You would go into the military because you know the day may come where you may have to come to the defense of this nation, of its citizens, and kill the enemy. There's a specific purpose for weapons, be it a knife. What about these guys in MS-13 that buy machetes and decapitate people and cut them all up like they did to that poor girl in Brentwood, or they do to their opposing gang members out in L.A. or Chicago or New York? You're going to hold the manufacturer of the machete responsible because someone decided to commit a crime using what you manufactured? No.
Now, did the Supreme Court send it back to the lower courts? For what was their reasoning? Did they give one?
Let me finish through the article. All right, I'm just quickly scanning through this. They just sent it back to the other court, and I don't see a reason for the ruling. I'd have to probably pull that up.
It's got to be some reason.
Well,
some procedure or process that the lower court didn't follow, and they want it taken care of before it comes to the Supreme Court.
Well, the Connecticut justice, his name is Richard Palmer, his decision stated that Remington's ad violated the CUTPA, the Connecticut Unfair Trade Practices Act, by marketing the XM15-E2S to civilians for criminal purposes, and that those wrongful marketing tactics caused and contributed to the Sandy Hook. So, all it looks like is the Supreme Court said, now kick it back to the lower court and let them make a ruling on that. And I see people up in the studio. If you want to participate in the conversation, if you want to participate in the conversation, please press 1 on your keypad. That way I know that you're not listening in and you have a comment, question, or you might be our next guest. But it looks like we do not have Pastor Paula with us today, which is a shame, because she has a great book called Something Greater. And it's an amazing, amazing book, and it had me laughing at times, crying at times. And hopefully we'll get her back on at another date. But it looks like we do not have her today, unfortunately. And I'm starting to lose my voice, guys. Oh, jeez. This is going to be a great show. If Annie can't talk. Hey, Annie, sit down and shut up.
But then, didn't the Supreme Court just take up the case about the DACA children? And they should have a ruling sometime next year. That's another interesting one.
Yeah,
they are. From everything I've heard, Obama did not have the authority to do that.
He used an executive order to legislate. It was not
right, and that's
it was not a enumerated power of the Constitution for him to create that executive order for DACA. We all knew that when he did it. And the fact that no one successfully challenged him when he was in office on that.
Because he was the guy, the black president. We couldn't do that.
Well, it just goes to show how deep the state is, that they wouldn't allow any challenge to his unlawfully using executive power. But
if that was Trump, oh my God.
Exactly. It would have gone to the Ninth Circuit in California or the Sixth Circuit down in D.C. And here's the good news, folks. And this is one of the things I wanted to talk to Jessie about, and go back to my notes here. Oh, I got the wrong set of notes. Trump has successfully changed the face of the federal judicial system. Let me just pull up the information here. I got so many different. You know me. I've Curtis, since you've been in the studio with me, you know how much I'm a mess, an absolute mess with papers all over the place.
And I believe the reason why Trump was left with so many open seats, judgeships, is because I think Obama believed that Hillary was going to become president next.
Well, not only that,
and that's why he didn't act on it with any urgency. Hillary,
Well, I will criticize Mitch McConnell when I see him doing wrong, but one of the things he succeeded in doing under the Obama administration is preventing a lot of these judicial appointments from going forward that Obama had put forward, which is why it left so many seats for Trump to do the appointment. So now, I'm not a fan of Mitch McConnell, and if you take the M off of Mitch and put a B in there, that's my nickname for him. But under Trump, we have seen, as of this past Wednesday, he has named and shepherded through the U.S. Nominations and approvals including Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh, 44 circuit court judges, 112 district court judges, and of these 158 judges, more are coming on. It's more than any president in the history of the United States has ever done. These are roughly 25% of the appellate court judges that are changing. And it's changing the makeup of the court systems across America, which is what we want to see. The Third Circuit has shifted. I said Sixth. It was the Third Circuit. Apologize. My bad. From being dominated by Democratic-nominated judges to GOP magistrates. The Second and 11th Circuits are likely to flip by the end of just this year. So that puts 3 on our side. Even the Ninth Circuit out of San Francisco is changing its complexion. So at this point, San Francisco, the Ninth Circuit, we're leading in right-leaning judges by a 2-seat majority. And the GOP Senate is expected to confirm more judges this year than combined in 2017 and 18. We're changing the face of America by this president that everyone loves to hate.
And he's got 4 more years.
Yep, from your lips to God's ears.
4 more years. 4 more years.
Yeah, you saw that rally when they started chanting 4 more years? And I swear, it's the rallies are getting bigger. And they didn't do like they did to you, Curtis, when you were at the rally and you were about 3 rows behind Trump when he was speaking. They're allowing more of a panorama so you can see the diversity of people standing behind him.
I noticed that. It's about time they get that.
Yeah, they cut you out because your mug is so ugly.
I was to the left. I was to the left. Yeah, that probably was a good reason.
Your mug was just too ugly.
I got pictures of me. Oh, well. Can't win the day for everybody. But Trump didn't need my help that day in that respect.
No.
But I was there cheering him on.
Oh, man. I don't know. And
the energy this guy has to even do these, I couldn't see Joe Biden having rallies like this just back to back. I think he'd be in a wheelchair or falling down like Hillary. They can't keep up with this guy. He's energetic, They said that if you look at all the presidents after they did like 4, maybe 2 terms, the hair just turns gray and they look older. But Trump, he seems energetic. He looks the same, even probably more younger and energetic than when he first came in.
Well, he thrives.
It's amazing.
He thrives on being busy. He's not a man that can sit still for very long. And, if you have him sitting still, like Biden would do, or Obama would do, they can't take the pressure. He lives on the pressure. His whole life has been about the pressure. And that's what he's all about. You're right. He looks younger.
And the deal.
But I also want to know who dyes his hair. Because it's not as orange as it used to be. I'm telling you, he gets his hair dyed. He does get his hair dyed. You can't say that's his natural color. It's as close to his natural color, but it's not as orange as it used to be.
I just know he looks great.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Curtis, bear with me for a second. I'm going to be right back. I have to go get something, and I want to... Oh, it looks like our next guest is coming in on the phone. Or no, it's not.
Okay.
It looks like we have...
That could be...
Yeah. Let me get the switchboard going. It looks like we have Pastor Paula White with us. Good afternoon, Pastor. How are you doing? Hello? Hello, area code 813? Hello?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Hi, Paula had a call at 4 p.m.
Yeah, we kind of missed you there, Pastor. How are you doing today?
Yeah, well, this is her assistant. This isn't Paula, but she just realized she missed the call. You were going to call her?
We did several times. And
We did several times.
We got the voicemail.
Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Can she call you now, or shall we reschedule it? I'm so sorry.
Well, I'm looking for Bill Gunasti is supposed to be calling in right now. I'm waiting for his call. If she wants to call in, or you give her the phone, we'll talk to her for a few moments before he calls in.
Okay, perfect. Let me see if I can do that. Thank you.
All right. Folks, this is live radio. You never know what's going to happen. But we're always going to work on the fly. Right, Curtis?
Right.
All right. It looks like Pastor Paula will be calling in just a moment here. But we've got a lot to talk about with her. I mean, unfortunately, we don't have the full half hour because if Bill calls in just a few moments, we'll see what happens. But like I said,
Then we'll be overbooked.
Hey, that's a good thing. That's a good thing because, she just got appointed to the White House in a interfaith position, as a public liaison. And it's great that she's going to be doing that because very few people understand or know how Trump has faith. And he does pray, and he it matters a lot to him.
As a spiritual advisor.
She has been.
I mean, think about it.
But she's been his spiritual advisor 14 years before he was elected. So she's been with him now for 17 years as a spiritual advisor. And he loves and trusts her so much that he's putting her in this liaison position for interfaith. So,
well, think about it. Bubba, he had Jesse Jackson. And Jesse, spiritual advisor, he's out there making babies with another woman and telling her to get an abortion twice. But he's a spiritual advisor to the president. I tell you, only in D.C., only in the Beltway.
Only. And it looks like someone just tried calling me on my phone, and it's not going to work, guys, whoever this is.
Wow.
So it could
now we have a true spiritual advisor. Trump gets nothing but the best.
And her book that is out there is an excellent book. And it's, Annie, get your act together here. It's called Something Greater that has just been released.
Something Greater. That's a great title.
Absolutely. And we've got Paula probably calling on my cell phone, and I'm trying to tell her that she's calling the wrong number. So hopefully this will
I left the number to the show.
Yeah. I sent a text over to her agent also, and hopefully that she'll get the message. Yeah, and Vorp points out that Reverend Wright was Obama's spiritual advisor for 20 years.
Oh, my God.
Your chickens have come home to roost.
What a piece of work.
Oh, please, Lord.
And this guy living in a multi-million-dollar home and is going to talk about the country that made that possible for him. And that's the problem I have with those on the left who are wealthy. Instead of going back to the communities that are poor and letting them know, hey, look, I did it, you can do it. No, they sit here and they put down the very system, our free market system, which made them rich. They put it down. So, of course, the masses and the poor communities, they're left with no hope.
No,
but they haven't figured out, well, how did those guys make it? It doesn't dawn on them, well, they made it.
Well, exactly. And this is something Pastor Paula had done. In her ministry, she went into the inner cities. She went out to East L.A., and as she was preaching, a gangbanger opened his jacket, showed her the weapon in his waistband as if to say, stop preaching, white girl. You best be stopped preaching because, and she continued. She didn't stop. She didn't know if she was going to be shot right then and there. And she was afraid for her life, but she kept on going. And you know what? That person that did it to her, went by the street name of Dreamer, put down his firearm at her feet and left the gang. And then he got other gang members to do this very, very same thing. So it looks like our next guest is up in the bullpen. And let's welcome to the show, Erbil, also known as Bill Gunasti. Good afternoon, Bill. How are you doing today?
Great to be with you. And
you know, it is very fortunate that you come on the show on this day when just this week, President Trump sat down with President Erbil. And oh my God, the fireworks in the press have gone absolutely nuts.
It's funny, right?
Yes.
No one knows what they're talking about.
Absolutely not.
I mean, it's like if he came from Mars or something, Venus or something.
Well, you've got a book that's going to be coming out on exactly this subject. It's going to be released in January, and I'm sure you're going to shoot me a copy, signed. Hint. It's called
Sure.
Game Changer, Turkey and Aerodyne Trump Card. And I'm looking forward to reading it because I've pulled up a whole slew of information on this book. And to let you know that we're up live video on Facebook. So these are my notes, guys. It's a whole stack of them. Plus some extra handwritten notes, crib notes I was doing. I did a whole lot of cramming last night on the situation. You know, I found that I wasn't as stupid as I thought I was. But everyone, you're hearing people like Lindsey Graham going, no, you don't want to do something with Turkey. You know, you got to give them sanctions. But that's the exact opposite of what we should be doing at this point in time.
Exactly. You know, the Republican senators has to be in tow with President Trump. They have to follow his lead. He has enough mockery to deal with, and Republicans just do not need to be too smart right now. And because when I say too smart, in the sense that they don't have to make a policy right now. This is not the time to make a policy. And it is time to win back Erdogan, which is the president of Turkey, to win back. Obama lost it, and President Trump has to win him back. That's simple enough right now. The damage that came from the globalists, Bush 43, Clinton, and Obama, all three globalists. And but what Obama did in the 8 years, foreign policy element, is disaster. And we are talking about Ukraine right now. We lost Crimea is lost to Russia. Well, when was it lost? During Obama time. And all these things that we are watching today on television, impeachment things, you see, it's all, it's a big mess. So there is a big mess with Turkey. And it's good, it's very smart for President Trump to bring President Erdogan to White House to mend those bridges. And pulling the troops out of Syria was the first step along that line. There are other issues that they have to deal with, and they have dealt. And they'll talk more, and they'll deal with more issues.
Well, you know, you've got a varied background, and you are able to step into two different worlds because you served under 8 Turkish prime ministers, including Erdogan, and you also have the ear of President Trump on these issues. So you know both sides of the equation, don't you?
Yes, I know. Like, I speak both languages, first of all, fluently. And, you know, English is my third language. French is my second. I went to boarding school, and Turkish is my first. So I study life, history, philosophy, and everything else, first in Turkish, then in French. That means European mindset. And after that, when I came to America, I studied this, Boston University, University of Miami, and NYU. So first of all, I understand what both sides are saying, whether they are making jokes, threats, or playing games. So it is important that one understands what, when in reference to one president and the other president, they come from two different cultures. They are two different people. But on the other hand, because of my background and understanding of these elements I just mentioned, I understand their personality, how they think, why, what would they think. And this is important. We are talking about right now an ambassador to Ukraine, U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, and she's making a fool of herself on television right now.
Oh, yeah.
But for those who understand, of course, but for half of the Democrats or the world that we live in America right now, unfortunately, they are clueless. And unfortunately, this ambassador is also clueless. I served, right, about a dozen ambassadors at the UN under Turkish prime ministers. Well, what does an ambassador do? Ambassador doesn't do anything. He sits, and the paper comes in front of him from the capital of the country after everybody put their signature on it, and he reads it someplace. Ambassador reads that thing. Ambassador never comes up, or he can give his opinion, or she can give his opinion, but you know how small that opinion is within the bureaucracy of any country, whether it is Turkey or U.S. It's a small opinion. It doesn't count diddly, nothing. The point is, that's why the Constitution gives enormous powers to one person as president versus 100 senators and so many congressmen, because one person at the top has to say things on behalf of that country clearly. Whether it is good, bad, ugly, doesn't matter. Whether it is a threat or it is said with low voice, diplomatically, postured, whatever it is, doesn't matter. The message has to be communicated to the other president because the other president is in the same boat. He has to evaluate everything else that's coming from his end. Nobody is living a good life. When you are a president of a country, you are under enormous pressures. So you have to talk freely to each other. Don't worry about any small people who are small people. Everybody else. Because our Constitution, U.S. Constitution today, gave enormous powers to the presidency. Why? There is a reason for that. So the point is, those two presidents, President Erdogan and President Trump, when they talk to each other, for that matter, any two presidents talk to each other, they are talking to one another with enormous powers. They are not there to make small business decisions. They don't have that luxury. Even if they are going to get benefit out of that encounter, of course, everybody gets an encounter, benefits from any encounter when two people meet. Something good comes out of it most of the time. But there is a lot more, they achieve a lot more stuff, whether they want it or not, for millions, hundreds of millions of people. So the point is, President Trump inviting President Erdogan to White House is not a simple matter. It's not a weakness. It's not this. It's not that. It is that two countries have to meet. That's why we have that White House, so that our president can meet with other presidents and conclude business deals, pocketbook issues deals, what they did.
Well, people are looking at Erdogan and they're saying, well, he's buying these Soviet missiles and he's buying these Soviet planes. Why aren't they buying from the U.S.? But under President Obama, they refused to sell them. And under this Congress,
exactly,
they canceled the sale, even though Trump was pushing for the sale, saying, hey, listen, this is our ally. This is our NATO ally. We have a 200-year relationship with Turkey. They assisted us in many NATO affairs, including saving lives of American soldiers in Korea during the Korean War. We have a tight relationship with them. They're the glue that's holding the Middle East together. Yep. We need to give them our equipment So they work with us, but our Congress and our previous president killed it. So what is he going to do to defend his country?
Yes.
What's his last option?
Look, we elected Obama. Who is he? He read lots of books. He's a smart man. He's a beautiful American, right? Good. We produced him as president. We created something wonderful. We are progressive, open-minded Americans. We elected Obama president. But he doesn't know how to sell. America is built on producing stuff and selling to the world. That's how we became the sole superpower. 40% of the world economy we became in the 20th century because we manufactured and we sold. We manufactured and we sold. So what is President Trump doing? He's saying, hey, okay, I understand Jamal Khashoggi was murdered. Okay, it is a disaster. But first, I have to continue selling stuff so that I can bring high-paying jobs to American people that everybody has to pay their bills. Good. What is so natural, about Turkey? It's an ally, like you said. All those other elements. But at the end of the day, they are customers. If they knock on your door today, if you want a pizza place, if you want any small, America is built on small shops, right? Mom and pop shops. If a customer comes, what do? You get up from your chair, you smile, and you sell stuff. Now, this country is coming. It's a big client. And you say, no, I don't want to sell it to you. Why not? Sell it, produce something even better, a new generation plane, new generation missile, new generation this. And then you have something else to hold back that they'll come back for it. This is what U.S. did during the 20th century. This is what President Trump is doing. Sell it first, then the world has tons of problems. We will resolve each one of them as best as we can together, whether it's a migration problem, whether it is wars, whether it's this, whether it's that. But selling, that's how this America was built. That's how we became superpower, and that's how we're going to maintain our superpower status. But we forgot how to sell. China is able to sell more to us, and European Union is able to sell more to us. Well, all these things took place more so during these globalists. They forgot how to sell. They started to buy, and then we are becoming number 3 economy accordingly. So when you sell, when you are able to sell, you have something to sell, then you have a leverage. What leverage do you have today over Turkey? Since you didn't sell anything last 20 years to Turkey, anything of value. So they bought it from here and there, but they also manufacture themselves. So you don't have any leverage. That's why in Syria, President Trump had to pull the troops out. Why? Because international system was functioning over there between themselves, and U.S. was not part of it thanks to Obama. And based on that, President Trump made a decision 1, 2, 3, and he says, hey, I'm going to pull the troops out, stay out in the Mediterranean, and then open a new page and come back to Middle East from the point of strength. But the point is, U.S. today doesn't have any leverage against Turkey. Okay, U.S. has enormous power, destructive powers against any states in the world today. Very powerful. So many nuclear bombs and missiles and everything. But no one is going to use them. We figured that out during the Cold War, mutual assured destruction element. And so that's out of equation. That's for the books. But there is a threat power. There is a respect that comes with it. But you're not going to use that. You're going to do it economically. Sell and have a leverage. There is no other way to go around this.
Well, we as Americans look over at Turkey, and for generations, it was a country where, similar to the United States, you had everyone as a melting pot. You had Christians, you had Jews, you had Muslims. They were all living in harmony.
Exactly.
And Erdogan comes into power. We see him as an Islamist. he's starting to implement in certain areas Sharia law. And so we as Americans question, what is his motive? Now, has he changed his opinions, or we see loss of human rights? So as Americans, we're going, well, do we want to support this man as a leader?
Well, you are making points based on the information, I call it disinformation, misinformation, out there. First of all, President Erdogan, when he came to power, it was in the 1990s. Well, he was a pious person, you know. He was a heavy religious. Like today, you can be very devout Christian, I can be devout Jewish or something Buddhist or whatever. That's what he is. Nothing more, nothing less. Now, use the word Sharia. President Erdogan never mentioned Sharia. He's not for Sharia. Those vocabularies are thrown just to blemish him. But when he came to power in 1990s, he was a pious person, very, into his religion. That's good. What's wrong with somebody believing in a religion, one religion, and minding his own business? So when I met for the first time President Erdogan, when he came to power in 2002, when I was in the mission, still working for the office of the Prime Minister of Turkey. So when his party came to power in 2002, that's when I first met. And my belief was that, okay, he's a very religious person, but what is his intentions? Who is he? Is he going to become part of the modern Turkish Republic has become in the 20th century, or is he going to take us to the Middle Ages? Like everybody else, like you're asking the question. I asked that question to myself too. So, but then he stayed in power like all the other Turkish prime ministers. They were all pious, as religious as this President Erdogan was. All the other 26 other prime ministers of Turkey that came to power, they were all as religious. In other words, if any one of them could have switched this secular republic that the U.S. allied with in the 20th century into Middle Age type of an empire, Islamic empire, any one of those prime ministers could have done it one time or another. But despite their religiousness, belief system and piousness, none of them, everybody modernized themselves, adjusted themselves to the Western civilization values, and harmonized it, and they matured themselves. And what I saw in 2002, and I left the Turkish government, at the end of 2007, and then when I revisited, what's going on with the Turkish politics around 2010 or so, I noticed that he matured like all the other Turkish prime ministers. Mature means what? He's still the same pious person. But now he understood what the modernity is that he never faced until he became prime minister to the degree that he faced. And from then on, when this coup d'etat, right now we are facing takedown attempt against President Trump, he faced a coup d'etat from the same elements, I bet you, that are doing this takedown attempt against President Trump. The same people were in play in Turkey. They tried a coup d'etat in July 15, 2016. They failed. For the first time, a U.S.-inspired, I call it, coup d'etat in Turkey failed because people understood. People said, we are not going to let this disinformation undermine our progressing republic. And that's also the people who are the followers, loyalists of President Erdogan. They say, hey, we arrived. We are part of this modern Turkish republic, and we live in the modern ages. It's time to build the life like the Western Europe is built, like every other modern country is building, and we're going to compete with every other country that way, up to the sky, not, expanding the territories. It is not time to, it's no longer times of empires, it's times of republics and building, countries with economic and military dynamics and allied and live in a community of countries, civilized ways. So based on that, all those notions that we hear, who's this man, who's that man, where did he come from? No, he's a simple man, religious man like any other man, no more or no less than any other pious religious person. And he's not here to change anything because he's part of the system. He defends the system more so than everything else. That's why he waited for Bush 43. He had issues with Bush 43. He didn't allow him to go to Iraq. Then he dealt with Obama. And then he waited 2 years for President Trump to get over with this Russian collusion farce so that he can talk. If he was anti-America, if he's anti-West, if it is anti-anything that we are claiming to be right now, lots of people, then he will not have waited President Trump for 2 years. He waited. They talked in Buenos Aires, then they talked in Osaka, and now he's invited to White House, and they talk. They're making a $100 billion business deal to start with. That's one of the positives, and there's a bunch of others.
Well, you also have, we as Americans see where he's making negotiations with Russia at the same time he's talking to us. So the American public is asking, is he double dealing?
Oh, no. It is. You have to ask Obama, why did he become a president when he didn't know any of the rules of international relations? I mean, when you look at who Obama had as his advisors, you will get these answers. I'm not going to go into that, but the point is, when Obama pulled the troops out of Iraq, John McCain, right, said, don't do that. Don't tell anybody that you're going to pull the troops out, and don't pull the troops out like that in 2014. So he did that. That's a mistake. Then in 2012 or 11, I don't remember now, he drew that red line in Syria. If you are not going to respond to that, penalize them for Bashar al-Assad regime to crossing that red line in Syria, don't put a red line down there because this is Middle East. They play this game in the Middle East. You draw a line, they cross it, and they wait you to penalize. They play the game with blood. But then, in the meantime, Ukraine, the point is the international system penalizes you. We Americans are penalized because of Obama's mistakes. What does that mean? It means that Russia played the game Crimea rightly against Obama and then waited its time, and when the time came, he made his move, thanks to the U.S. Congress and Senate. When they didn't sell it, he approached to Turkey to sell some missile system, S-400s, when Obama made the mistake not to sell Patriots. Now, Russia is in the process of selling to Turkey Su-57 planes because of our Republican senators are being, are not clear on that, and they are not selling F-35s. The point is, Russia started to sell things to Turkey. Good. What did we say? This is how you have a leverage on one another. One buys something, the other one sells, and you have a leverage. But on the other hand, when Obama drew this red line, and then he didn't penalize Bashar al-Assad, what happened? Russian troops came to Syria. They didn't come in for vacation. They came there for the next 50 years. Now, Russia is there, and Iran fill the vacuum. I can also go. There's plenty of mess here. Good. There is Iran. There is Russia there in the southern border of Turkey. what should Turkey do at this time? Ignore them? There's two countries. One of them is in the north. One of them is on the east. And Turkey sees them now in Syria, in the southern border. So another front opened up Turkey. So Turkey has to now deal with these two powers. Whether one likes it or not, Turkey has a real issue. It has to deal with Russia and Iran leveraging themselves against Turkey. That's a security issue. Good. Turkey has said, I have to deal with them. In the meantime, he looks at Europe, Angela Merkel, or for that matter, America. Obama was there. There's nobody at home. So Turkey has to make a deal with Russia, whether Turkey likes it or not. So Turkey enters into a relationship with Russia, but into equation with Western Europe, because Western Europe is also another player. So in other words, Turkey did not go and said, oh, I'm going to start working with Russia and against America from now on. No, there's no such thing. Turkey looked at the cards that was dealt to him because of Obama administration's mistakes, and then says, all right, I have to create a new balance of power for me to exist here. What's the balance of power? I have Russia in Syria now. I have Russia in the north, has always been. I have Western Europe. That's all globalists. You know, there's nobody is helping Turkey. Everybody coming after Turkey. Good. Turkey established a balance of power between European Union, Russia, and Turkey to save its behind. What does that mean? Russia would sell oil. 30% of oil goes from Russia to Europe right now. And then Turkey is going to prevent the Muslim refugees or any refugees coming from Asia or Africa flooding the Western Europe, which 2015 we saw 1 million came. Suddenly we had 5 radical governments in Western Europe. So based on that, it stabilized it. Now, on the other front, there is an Iran. And what did Obama do on top of it? He gave a plane load of cash plus nuclear sunset clause so that Iran can become a nuclear power in 10 years. So Turkey said, what are you doing on top of that? You not only invited with your red line in Syria, Iran to settle next to Russia in Syria, but now you are making him nuclear power. Well, let me tell you, Turkey said, I'm going to have a nuclear power before Iran acquires that. So Turkey, walk on that path. We are not talking about these things here in the States right now. No one is talking about this. But Turkey is going to become a nuclear power. Mark my word. It's in the book too. That before Iran will become a nuclear power because of Obama's decision and all that. So Turkey, in other words, Obama killed the balance of power in the Middle East by offering Iran nuclear sunset clause. And
well,
he doesn't know what he did.
You just said something very important, a balance of power, because there are 3 pillars to the power that's in the Middle East. And you say there are Iran, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey. Why do you name those 3?
Well, I am not naming Saudi Arabia as one of the legs, but Iran and Turkey as the 2 other legs. Saudis represent the Arabs. So there are Arabs, there are Persians, which Iranians are, and there are Turks in Turkey. So why are they? Because each one is, there's about 200 million Arabs there living in the Middle East, or maybe more. And Persians, with all the Shiites, they go over 100 million, maybe 120, 30 million, with all those Yemen and Lebanon and everywhere. And Turks, in Turkey proper, they are, about 75, 80 million, but Turkish population is about 140 around the world, mostly in Central Asia. So here you have about close to over 500 million people living in a condensed area, right, in the Middle East. And these people differ from one another.
What happened?
Were tremendous.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. For some reason, you dropped out for a few seconds. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Oh, No, I'm saying that there is three big populations there, number-wise. One Arabs, one Persians, one Turks. Each one is, let's say, about over 100 million or 200 million people. And this makes up a big mass. And these three masses have to balance each other in order to create a stability between themselves. After all, there is 600 million people, and they come from three different sources, three different, philosophies and all kinds of stuff. And there are tensions if you want to ignite them. So they have to establish a balance of power between them to have a stable area. Now you will say, what about Israel? Well, what about Israel? What do you do with the 10 million people there, surrounded by 600 million people, and then there is another 1 billion people in Africa? Most of them have association with the Middle Eastern than Western Europe. What do you expect this little island to fight against? Not even all the might of U.S. and European might cannot face such a attack. If you unleash more than 1 billion people uniting, So in other words, we have to put everything into perspective. Over there in the Middle East, in order to have a stable Middle East so that we don't have a headache in Western Europe, we don't want to lose Western Europe, Christian white West Europe, we want to keep it as best as we can. For that matter, you have to have some stability in the Middle East and no military power. We saw what happened to us in Iraq. We went in there, $7 trillion, 14 years later, we had to leave. What happened in Lebanon to us? We put 300 Marines where we should never have put them, and we lost 241 of them with one bomb or two bombs, and we left Lebanon since 1970s. And that means we lost Lebanon, we lost Iraq, Carter lost Iran, and we lost Syria. We are just pushed out. We are out of the Middle East. How does it help us that the messy area, the divide and conquer, divide and conquer was a policy of British. Look what happened to Britain. It doesn't exist. No one talks about Britain anymore. It's been dismembered further and further. So the point is, those policies, those ideologies worked in the centuries. They belong to those centuries. We live now in the 21st century. The wars are made with cyberspace and cyber and space wars. That's what we are making, cyber wars, 2016. We're going to have 2020. That's natural. We're going to have it, more of them. But in the meantime, we have to continue, working with each other, because demographics of the world is going to increase against the Christian white West. There will be 2 billion more people from Asia and Africa coming into the world. Now, these people have to be handled. You cannot bomb them to finish them off. You cannot do anything else with them. You have to handle them. You have to regulate them. You have to deal with them, feed them, interact with them. So that's what President Trump is doing. Why President Trump is talking to a Turkish leader, Muslim leader? He's smart. He says, hey, I have to deal with these Muslims, and why don't I deal with the right Muslim leader who can help me control the world population?
Well, what I find interesting, there's a recent poll out of Israel, a public opinion poll, and out of the Israelis, they favor a working relationship with Turkey, and this is an amazing number, 53 to 32%.
Of course.
Now, what would happen to Israel should Turkey walk away from the West?
What will happen to Turkey should...
No, Israel.
One more time the question, please.
What would happen to Israel?
What will happen to Israel?
If Turkey walks away from the West?
Oh, Israel finishes. You won't have Israel. If Turkey walks away, Turkey will never walk away from the West. Why? I say it because I come from them. I understand, like you made the point initially. Turkey is going to stay with the Western world. So President Trump knows that. This is the wisdom and vision of President Trump, that if people can stop for a second watching these nonsense television in the U.S. and think what President Trump is, they will find out that this is a good American. He's an American that understands the rest of the world. Point is, Israel cannot exist if Turkey is not part of the Western alliance. Cannot exist. Why? Because Turkey has to take care of itself if it is not part of the Western alliance. What does that mean? The first thing means Turkey has to become a nuclear state, which I'm telling you, it will become a nuclear state because of Obama and all that thing. So that's already triggered. So that's not the issue. The issue is independent Turkey will be a nuclear state. Along with that, Iran and Arabs will be nuclear states. When there is a 3 nuclear Muslim states in the Middle East, how do you expect the 4th nuclear state, which is Israel, to exist? It doesn't. Whichever way, I am a game theorist. I study games theorist, and my professor was Stephen Brahms, and he's the one who wrote the Med theory and all that. And he asked me to do PhD with him. I said, no, I'm not doing PhD because you go do the PhD on these things. I have better things to do. I went to the closet and I came out when President Trump came down the stairs, declared himself, because that's when I said, hey, now I have him as the president. Now I can go out and talk about these things that I couldn't talk in America because it is too liberal. Now you need now I find a way to talk about it. Why didn't I talk up until now? Why did I write the book now? Because I now say that we can talk about these things, the realities, what we haven't talked in the last 24 years altogether. We lost it.
Well, I noticed
Israel will not exist without Turkey.
Well, I noticed something when Erdogan was speaking with Trump and the presser that they did. He, on numerous occasions, did not call them terrorists or ISIL or ISIS or Al-Qaeda or Taliban. He called them by the correct name, the Daesh, which they hate. So I looked at that. That was a strong message being sent to these Islamic jihadists out there that he's taking a specific stance. And to us as Americans, we may miss that point, but to those in the Middle East and the Arab world, it sent a very strong message.
Yes, but you have to understand, today in America, there is a disinformation. I mean, there is no information that you can rely on what's going on. If somebody were to listen what President Erdogan says, he talks all the time. When he talks about half an hour conversations, that he makes speeches like any other president, right? And if one listens to him, what he says, without bias, if you think it objectively, you will say, hold on a second, he's making an energy point, right? Energy issue of the world. The next problem is Eastern Mediterranean energy war. So he's going to talk about nuclear armaments, why Turkey should have nuclear arms and will have it and all that stuff. It's, when you listen to him in 10 different topics that he's in half an hour, you will just say, was this a U.S. president that just talked? Or was this a person that we don't want to have anything to do with from some Muslim country? No, that was from a Muslim country. But what he talks, what he would be, you will be hearing as American, what we will be hearing is common sense. And the common sense is what America is built on, was at least until the globalists came and messed it up. But common sense, that's made this country go to the moon. So Turkey today, whether it is Erdogan, whether it is the first founder Atatürk, or any between 25 other prime ministers came before the thing dissolved. They have common sense. And based on this common sense, Turkey says, hey, these guys are terrorists. Whether they are Kurds right now, U.S. soldiers are talking and walking with, like if they are the freedom fighters, they are terrorists, or whether somebody left their home in Germany, UK, and France, came to Syria and took a Kalashnikov and started killing people. They are terrorists. They are Daesh. They are whatever they are. Anybody who kills somebody else, a human being, kills another human being, that human being is another category now. You cannot take life that is not for you to take in this life. So that's what we call terrorists. And these people have killed people. They ethnic cleanse people. Today, look, these people that Daesh, that Erdogan calls them, and then the Kurds who are associated with unfortunately, with the U.S. troops, they are the ones who cleanse their own brethren, Kurds, cleanse Kurds, 350,000 of them from northern Syria. They are the ones who push them out. That's why they are waiting for the Turkish soldiers to come and create the safe zone so they can go back to their home. I mean, these things are never mentioned. No one pays attention. But this is a simple reality. And there is a common sense. When you look at it from common sense perspective, what Erdogan is saying, you'll just say, hey, maybe you should become a president of the U.S. because he is making sense as exactly like Trump would make sense, or he won't make sense like Trump. President Trump would not make sense in the atmosphere that we are living in.
Well,
so, in other words, there is a split of the world right now.
Well, Bill, you've got a great book out there. I'm looking forward to reading it when it's released on, I believe it's January 20th of this year. People can get it up on Amazon or go to your website, which is your name, Erbil Gunasti. Bill, it has been a pleasure. There's so much more to delve into this. This is such a complicated issue. We haven't even discussed who are the Kurds and why are they trying to make a nation for a nation that never existed. But I've got my next guest up in the bullpen. It has been so much fun talking to you.
Sure.
And I will be speaking with you, and you have a blessed day. Thank you for the hard work you do. The book is called Game Changer. God bless.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. God bless you too.
Okay.
Take care.
All right. We have up here, and if the person in area code 863 is one of our guests, please press 1 so that I know that your hand is up in the studio switchboard. But we have with us Royal and Glenda. And I've got to make sure I get this correct because I keep on switching the names back around in my dumb head. It's Royal Brown and Glenda White. Brown and White. I love that. You call yourself the Tans.
Yes, we're the Tans.
Yes, good afternoon. No.
Hey, Glenda. Royal.
No, I don't know if that's your husband on the other line. Is it yes or no? Or are you both on the same line?
Yeah, we are. We're both on our own cell phones. Should we get a little further from each other?
Well, I'm getting a little bit of a feedback between the two of you, so that would be good. Anyway, you're here.
Is that better?
Yes, it is. Thank you. You're here. You're with the Winter Haven 912. You're also with your county GOP. But the two of you are hitting on an issue. We touched on this earlier with one of our previous guests, Jessie Jane Duff, about the assault on our Second Amendment rights. And, of course, the nation, you hear people. We just had a horrific shooting out in the L.A. area just yesterday where 2 young students died. And every time something like this happens, you hear the people screaming, gun control, red flag laws. And it drives me crazy because I've always said, and Curtis will say, yes, she has, the only answer to a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun.
That's correct.
And is Royal with us? He may need to call back in.
Yeah, hang on.
All right.
He might still have his phone on mute. Hold on. I told him to put his phone on mute. This is our first time doing this. Hang on a second.
Folks, this is live radio. You never know what's going to happen. That's all right. I mess up all the time. Don't worry about it. And I've been doing this now going on 10 years.
Yeah, put him in another room.
Yeah, Royal, go sit in the bathroom.
Okay, I'm good. Okay, there we go.
Tell him go sit in the bathroom.
Okay, we'll get it together.
We'll get on the throne. But
I was just saying that most of these shootings have occurred in gun-free zones.
Exactly.
If there was if there was a law-abiding citizen present with a gun to stop these killers, there'd be a lot less of a death toll in most of these cases.
You know, it's funny because it's gotten to the point where kids are being penalized for doing what every law-abiding citizen has the right to do. Here in my own school district, the other day, the kid had been out hunting in the morning, put the gun on the rack, forgot about it, went into school, and the next thing you know, another student's going, hey, this guy has a gun in the gun rack in his vehicle. And the kid is now, could possibly be facing criminal charges. Now, growing up, you guys are approximately the same age as I am. This was a natural thing for us to do. Whoever thought about it? You put the rifle up, make sure it's unloaded, leave it in the gun rack, lock your car up, and no one bothered you.
Well, we've had an 8-year-old child whose parents now had their weapons seized because the child says them. So he basically had the RPO set out to him, but because it was to him and he lived with his parents, all of their guns were seized. So the child made a threat or something in school, and the parents' weapons ended up getting seized.
Well, it's
another kid was.
No, go ahead.
The child was the one served with the RPO, risk protection order,
and the child probably didn't own a weapon.
Since he lived in his parents' home. Yeah, right. That means all weapons and all things attached to the weapons have to be seized. Since he was a child and lived with his parents were the ones that got their weapons seized.
Well, you know, there was a case
that happened here, I think, last month.
Well, there was a case in California, and I think it was about 5 or 6 years ago, and I discussed it on the show here about 5 or 6 years ago. There was a woman that was taking Paxil. She was depressed. She wasn't violent. She wasn't threatening everyone. She was not suicidal. She was just having some personal issues, and she felt a little down in the dumps. Just a simple medication of Paxil. I mean, I had a bad car accident, and because I was in so much pain, which was making me edgy, the doctor gave me Paxil one time. You know, I'm not on it now, so if the NSA is listening in, no, I haven't taken it in more than 20 years. But they went into her home because her husband had guns. They were locked in a safe, but they came with a warrant to seize all of his weapons that were not in her control because she was on Paxil. That's how crazy these laws are.
Yeah, and plus the factor that they violate flagrantly so many constitutional rights is frightening. But to me personally, the most frightening thing about this is how little people know about this. I am shocked. When we mention RPO, people are asking me, "What's that? What's the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Act?" They don't know. Even legislators.
No, if people who are listening have no idea what an RPO is, it's called a risk protection order, also known as the red flag law. So basically,
yes,
a family member or even a neighbor of yours or an ex-girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, can say, well, that person is a danger. There's no facts to back it up, just a supposition. That person goes before a judge in a civil court, and sometimes these judges have a 99% hand out the warrant because one individual on there say so. So technically, anyone listening to this who disagrees with me can go to a judge and say, this woman's a whack job. I heard her make some threats, and I could have my weapons taken away without prior knowledge, without facing my accuser, without any defense in that court when the judge issues the warrant, without any fact-based evidence, not a hearsay. Fact-based evidence.
Yeah. So the first violation is of your. Yeah, the first violation is of your Second Amendment. The second violation is of your due process rights. And the third, I don't know if you even realize, is First Amendment. Why? Because political entities, if they can get the power that they want in Florida, right now it requires law enforcement to ask the judge for it. But forces are right now attempting to get that made into anybody can approach a judge and ask them to issue the RPO. So basically, if they don't like what you say, they can take it. They can take it to a judge. This person is a threat. They believe weird stuff. They believe in the Second Amendment. Therefore, they're a threat. And if the judge happens to be a lib, well, he just might agree with them.
Glenda, this is CS.
Yes, sir.
Do you think this is a part of a larger scheme to confiscate all of our guns by just having anybody come up, any liberal, reporting that, hey, that Republican neighbor of mine, he has weapons, and I think he's
exactly. Well, do you think the grass is green? You think the sky is blue? It absolutely is a full-on attempt to take away Second Amendment rights. Absolutely it is.
Well, you
if
mentioned...
I could come in here.
Go ahead,
Royal. I could break in here a minute. It's more than just, as Linda said, it's more than just the Second Amendment rights are being violated with this Senate Bill 7026, the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Public Safety Act. It's also our Fifth and 14th Amendment rights for due process. And as Linda was just saying, it can also result in violating our First Amendment rights, especially if the Florida Senate, under Bill Galvano, or Joe Galvano, whatever his first name is, I think it's Bill, they are proceeding right now to work with the FDLE to identify hate speech. Well, hate speech is still covered under the First Amendment, and what someone has to say about, let's say, Islam, maybe they have a problem with it. Is that hate speech? I don't think so. But
according to CARE, it is.
Yeah, exactly. So any number of things that you might say could lead to you being issued a risk protection order.
Well,
and in our view as judge, a judge should not be making decisions to seize property based on what might happen in the future, because that opens some very dangerous avenues to ignore our rights, and that's exactly what the RPO does.
Well, I'm holding up before the camera on Facebook two different pocket constitutions. The blue one I've been carrying around, and unfortunately it's gotten so very dog-eared I can't do it anymore, since 1976. I've had it in my purse. I've always had a pocket constitution in my purse since 1976, so that if people can understand how the First Amendment is being violated, if they remember, there's 5 parts to the First Amendment, which covers religion, speech, press, assembly, and the ability to petition the government. So if we say something and someone posts something up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or whatever, showing themselves with a gun or making the little hand gesture like a gun, someone could take offense to that, go to a judge, and then get an RPO. If you believe in a religion that feels that you should be able to defend yourself and so arm yourself, someone who does not believe in your religion can then go petition a judge for an RPO. If you turn around and you are given an RPO, your ability to seek redress from the government for grievances before the RPO is even served is now violated. 3 sections of the First Amendment have been violated by these red flag laws.
That's correct.
Well, and you should also know that politicians will use, if they get the power to do this, politicians will use this ability. We have already had a shadow threat from our own congressman, the 912 has, because we show up to, well, we were showing, he holds his town halls now on Thursday evenings because that's the evening we meet, so we won't attend his town halls anymore. His name is Darren Soto. He's Florida District 9. We were attending his town halls all through the first of the year, and I in particular was asking him to sign a discharge petition for the Born Alive Act, which would force it to the floor of the House if they get enough votes. He did not want to sign it, and he was very embarrassed when I would speak out in a town hall and hand him a handful of petitions that had been signed, asking him to sign off on this discharge petition. It was very embarrassing to him. People were asking questions, and they didn't like it. And all of a sudden, in May, he becomes the guest column writer for the Lakeland Ledger and names us in the paper and says these people have been hostile. Yeah, hostile in his townhouse. We've never been hostile, not even once. But that right there is a shadow threat. Now, if a congressperson or some other elected person calls up the sheriff or calls up the judge and says, this person is a threat, and I say, no, I'm not, who do you think the judge is going to listen to?
Not you. Absolutely not you.
No, it won't be me. It will be the politician. That person has more money and more influence. It will be the politician. That is how they can keep us quiet.
Absolutely.
It turns due process on its head. We have lived under the principle for a long time, a principle of law, that a person is innocent until proven guilty. Under this risk protection law, they turn it upside down. You're considered guilty until you prove to the judge that you're not a threat. You're not entitled to a lawyer. The hearing that you go to is within 2 weeks after the seizure of your property. That is not due process. And the law enforcement agency that issues the petition, they get to bring their attorney into the hearing. If you want an attorney, you're going to have to go out and hire one and go through the expense of doing that. And you have to prove that, hey, I'm not a threat to myself and I'm not a threat to anybody else in that hearing. But
all at your own expense, on your own time, whatever work you miss, whatever you have to deal with as a result of going through all this, they have no recourse, or you have no recourse to be reimbursed. They do not have to recompense you for anything, even if you're wrongly seized. They do not have to recompense you anything.
No.
And plus, their lawyers... Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead and ask him.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, with myself being a veteran and Royal, a veteran.
And Glenda. Glenda. Don't forget her. She served too. God bless you for your service.
There you go. And, as veterans, we have gone to other countries to protect their rights and their liberties. And it's just so strange that we have to come home and fight just as much for the rights we have, that's etched in stone in the Constitution and just plain natural rights. And I found very offensive during the Obama administration when they were going after, veterans. In other words, if you had PTSD or something like that, they were working on a way that they could confiscate your guns, through doctors' office visits,
through mental health, through mental health services.
Yeah, you have weapons. I think that was part of the question.
There was a statistic that came out just after 2015 that over 250,000 veterans had already had their weapons seized because of this.
Exactly. And we did several shows on this issue with the VA because it wasn't on a doctor's note. Some clerk in the back room who may be pissed off at you because you pushed to get an appointment or they just didn't like you, a clerk could make a notation in your jacket, and then someone would turn around, hand that over to law enforcement. Next thing you know, the veteran has a knock on the door, and you turn over your guns. If you refuse to do that, then you will lose all of your VA benefits. So you have a choice. Keep your benefits or give us your gun.
Yeah, so they do this through the ATF. The ATF is the one that shows up at your door if you have been identified by the VA as mentally incompetent for whatever reason. They coordinate that with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, and they send federal agents out to your residence to seize all your weapons, all your ammunition, and anything else, any other accoutrements to that property, and that's just wrong.
Well, this comes up to the Fourth Amendment, search and seizure, the right of the people to be secure in their persons. Doesn't say anything. Persons, houses, papers, and effects. That includes your gun. Against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall be issued, but upon probable cause. There's no probable cause here. Supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. So probable cause does not exist, and the issues are not warranted upon probable cause. And oath and affirmation on what? Hearsay?
Correct. Yeah. Now here in Polk County, our sheriff was behind the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Act because he created a program called the Guardian Program, which is being implemented in schools throughout Florida. It's actually a good program. However, he told us openly that he was for it because he wanted the Guardian Program instated, and he has now made over 400. Well, I guess he's getting close to, isn't it, Royal? 400 RPOs, and he swears that these were truly needed for the most part. I think from the statistics we're able to obtain, it was about 5% of those were wrong seizures. However, he swears that these seizures were seriously needed and that there was ample evidence. Every sheriff is supposed to have a written policy in place how they're going to conduct RPOs as of January 1st, 2019. I don't know that a lot of them have done it, but our sheriff has done it. No, and he makes sure... Go ahead.
What's the Guardian Program?
The Guardian Program is basically a way that school kids are physically protected. So that means they have somebody armed on campus. They left it open.
The Sentinel program or Guardian program requires that every school have either an armed resource officer who is a law enforcement officer or a trained armed security guard. And that's every school, elementary, middle school, and high school. And we are certainly not opposed to that program. In fact, it's been extended now. It's been stretched out to where if the superintendent of schools and the sheriff together agree, teachers can now be armed in Florida. Trained teachers, trained school.
Right, and these people who are allowed to carry. Yeah, the people who are allowed to carry are better trained than our sheriff's deputies in the use of their weapons. We are for it. Royal is correct. We are behind this 100%. When people called for volunteers to step up, they were overwhelmed. Now our school superintendent has chosen not to do volunteers. She has chosen another path. However, those who are asking for volunteers to man their schools are getting overwhelmed.
Well, can you send me information on this?
The woodwork wanting to help.
Glenda, send me information. Email me if you can tonight, because I've got my school superintendent coming to my school superintendent is coming to our Tea Party meeting on Monday, and they just passed a bond referendum where school security was part of the bond referendum. I'd like to present him with something like this.
It's the law.
With the Guardian
It is
program?
the law.
Yeah, they
The
actually have it. Yeah.
requires it. It's stated
Yes.
in law.
Is this nationwide?
That's why they have it.
Is this nationwide or just in Florida?
Well, the Guardian program, having armed personnel in each school now is a requirement. The problem is that school superintendents are given a wide berth in how they're going to conduct it. So if I were you, I would contact the school superintendent and ask him to provide you a copy of what school security looks like and how they're dealing with having armed personnel in their schools.
Well,
and
he's
get
going to be
that
on.
before he gets there, so you can question him.
He's going to be on the hot seat Monday night. I'll tell you that, because we've got a lot of.
I would get that information beforehand so you can question him on this, because they're given a wide berth in how they can do this.
You can cite SB 7026 and SB 7030, both Florida laws.
Well, that's Florida law, but I'm asking.
Personnel in every school.
I'm asking you if this is. I was asking if this was federal law or is it just Florida law?
No. State of Florida law.
That's why I'm asking if you can send it, because I'm in South Carolina. I don't think.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll do that. We will send you a copy of. We'll send you a copy of the SB 7026, and we'll also send you a copy of our sheriff's RPO policy, how he's doing it.
Absolutely.
And then, Royal, can we find some information on the Guardian program specifically?
Well,
I
it's
think
all
we have
in
it.
SB 7026 with the Florida law. But Florida is the only red state in the country to have a red flag law. The other 16 states are all blue states. So to our shame, we're the first ones to implement this. And again, we're not against the Guardian program, which is part of the Florida law, but we are against this risk protection order big time,
right?
Because of the fact that it ignores due process, and it also ignores the Second Amendment, because our law now has limits age, has an age restriction. Anybody 18 to 20 years old cannot own or possess a long gun now under this law. So that's a clear violation of the Second Amendment.
Yeah. I did see a headline today when I was going through my email that Representative Sabatini down here has introduced a law that would restore the rights of gun owners from 18 to 20 in full, except for college carry, which is another one we've been trying unsuccessfully to get passed, because we've had several college shootings, and then, of course, there's the famous Ted Bundy murders in the 70s, I guess it was, but we have a lot of college campuses down here, and we have a lot of kids who are walking around unprotected, especially a lot of females, and they get targeted quite often, I'm afraid. And colleges do not like to release their crime statistics because of it.
No, they don't. It's kind of bad for the tuition coming in and their paychecks and glossy things that come
recruitment. Yeah.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. But there are a number of problems with the RPO, and what we have been doing is talking to people. We're talking to everybody who will listen. We were recently up in Tallahassee talking to legislators, and we are seeing some hope. We have a representative in District 1. His name is Mike Hill.
Yes,
and
we know Mike.
He has filed. You know Mike?
Oh,
so
Mike's
are you
been on here
familiar
many
with
times.
the bill he filed? Yeah. Or if you're not familiar with the bill, he has filed to repeal the RPO and just remove it from the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas law. I would get a copy of it. It's a good piece of legislation. He has been totally ostracized because of it. Unfortunately, we have a lot of rhinos in Tallahassee, and it's going to be an uphill battle. But I think people are starting to hear our voices up there. It looks like they're trying to do something.
Yeah, well, the last
time I don't exactly know if any. Go ahead.
I was going to say the last time Mike was on here, he did talk about his law, taking that part out. It was House Bill 175, and we did have a good long conversation about Mike. We love him. He's come in at one point where Curtis
Oh,
could
he's
co-host,
awesome.
and he co-hosted with me. So Mike is a favorite of the show.
Oh, he is awesome. He's actually coming to speak to the 9/12 in January. We can't wait. He's awesome.
Absolutely.
But yeah, Royal and I have just really picked this up as a cause, and we're actually doing a gun forum here at the 9/12 on 11/23, and we're trying to get the word out to as many people as possible. And John Hallman, who we've been working with, a lobbyist in Tallahassee, is joining us on that. We're working directly with him, and we're going to try and get a series of these gun forums going. So we are spreading the word as much as we can, but people really need to know about this. And you're right. Every time a shooting occurs, that's the first thing. They don't even take an hour to start screaming gun control anymore. They don't have any shame. They don't have a soul left.
No. And the first thing they do to the populace, they disarm the veterans. Then they disarm the senior citizens,
Yes.
then the veterans, and then they go for everyone else. And right now, they've so far have tried to take away from.
You know what?
Go ahead.
I really want to I meant to make a point about veterans when Curtis was discussing the problem with veterans. There is one thing that really, really has occurred to me when I saw all this activity going on with veterans. They are the first people who will defend this nation from a tyrannical government, because they have offered and spilled their blood. And I think the government would very much like to get guns out of their hands before anybody else, because they will defend the nation.
Exactly.
And I mean against a tyrannical government.
And as we said,
I know I will.
The VA has already gone after the veterans through, just like I said, a clerk making a notation. We've seen it where senior citizens, you use bill pay, so you're not physically sitting down and writing your checks at the end of the month. Well, that means you're not responsible for yourself. We've actually seen someone use that as a reason to control, not just take the guns away, but to control that individual's bank accounts, where they weren't even seeing their checks come in. So, there's multiple ways in which they can attack us on us. Unless we are alert like you are, like this show is, we won't know about it.
I agree.
And, you sent me so many documents. I couldn't go through all of them, but I took out the ones that, I looked at this list and I'm going, oh God, do I have enough time till the end of the year to finish reading this stuff? But there's a
man, we have been writing and going to town halls, screaming at legislators. We have just been all over this since it passed in 2018. Both of us are just all over this. I don't know where Royal went, but he has done immense amounts of writing on this.
Yeah, and you sent me a copy.
Are you there, Royal?
You sent me a copy that was sent to your Republican representatives, which you sent back in September, and you all took the time to put your full titles and signature on it. You should not be ashamed to write to your legislator. Matter of fact, I used to have Mark Sanford as my representative. Thank God he dropped out of the presidential race. A little sanity there, Mark. But now it's Joe Beercan Cunningham. And I have no qualms about making my voice heard to him, but always do it in a polite and respectful manner. And you'll get a response. And maybe we open a dialogue, which is what you guys have done.
Right. Yeah,
Linda.
and this last, yes, sir.
Oh, I was just going to say, where does the governor stand on all of this? And I'm talking about Ron DeSantis. Has he been helpful to you?
He has not really been involved with this issue vocally. He is a Second Amendment guy. However, I haven't seen him take a real stand on this, and I do believe because Joe Gruters, Bill Galvano, all the top people up in Tallahassee are taking money from gun control people, a lot of money, and asked, and it is a hot topic right now. He's got an office to run. I think it's about politics up there, and I think the only way that this is going to get resolved is if people start screaming about it. People are going to have to get angry. It was an emotional, and like I said at the very beginning, a lot of people are not aware of this. They do not know what's going on. They do not know what an RPO is. They don't even know about the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas law, and I don't know how that happened, but it seems to me the media or whoever just kept it quiet. I don't know how they did it, but Royal and I are very involved, and we're very aware of stuff like this when it happens, and we just do our research and write, speak, scream, stand on street corners, whatever, and that is how people are finding out. But unfortunately, it's been very slow to get around, and my fear is that it's going to get normalized, and then it's just going to be entrenched in our law, and nobody's ever going to do anything about it until it's too late, or try to do anything about it, and that's it. We lose our rights. And
well, just
Florida
to let
goes
you
blue,
know,
whatever.
Annie is prior law enforcement, so you got her back in 100%.
All right. Well, I just listen. I just hope South Carolina stays bright crimson red, and you guys, start having some influence down here in Florida, especially up around the Tallahassee area. My God, man! Last year we came within 1% of being a socialist-led state.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did.
Very scary. Very scary.
Well, we've got a great GOP chair, Drew McKissick, who happens to be a friend of mine. I love that man. He has helped turn around the GOP here in South Carolina, where it was sort of like establishment moderate, and he's brought it back over to the conservative side. And we had his vice chair at our GOP meeting just earlier this week. And believe it or not, she's got the same cowboy boots I have. They're red, white, and blue with stars on them. And I'm looking at her, and I've got the same exact boots.
Wow, you got to send a picture of those.
But what they did was they took our Republican platform, which she said was something like 10,000 words. And I'm holding up to the camera a little card, an index card, and they reduced it to a small booklet and also to an index card that you can just carry around with you, because it was so wordy, so weldy that no one knew what we stood for. And they said, no, these are the principles. And the vice chair is traveling around the entire state, going from group to group, explaining what the Republican principles are, what we're fighting for. And this is what Republican parties across the nation have to do to take our country back to its conservative roots. That's my rant for the day.
Outstanding. 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 Keep ranting. Well, we actually joined our REC last year because they put in place a very conservative board, and we are now quite active with them. And then when I first started conversing with Curtis, and found out what he had done up in his county. I guess it's your former county, is that right? Turned it from blue, turned it from blue to red.
Oh, I'm still in.
Is that right?
I just do the show from my laptop here.
It was Putnam County, yeah. So I'm like, well, I need to get lessons from him. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
What I preach to my Tea Party all the time is I tell them politics is local. You got to pay attention to what's on the local level.
Yeah.
And if you don't like what you see, what the Republican Party is doing, then get involved, become a member, go to the meetings. And when I became the precinct...
And turn them back to red.
Yeah, when I became the precinct chairperson for where I am here in South Carolina, I had a friend of mine who helped found our Beaufort Tea Party ask me why I wanted to become active, and I said, I want to take back the Republican Party. And oh my goodness, thank God she's a good friend of mine, but she started to chew me out, and I says, no, you forgot your roots. We've got to get involved and take it back to what our intent was.
That's right. That's right. And one thing that we have done down here is we put together this voter value card in 2018. It was pretty basic, but I'll tell you what, people were going crazy over them. So we did a little bit more involved one this year, and we based it on the platform of the Republican Party. So on one side, you assess your own values, and on the other side, you flip, and if you believe in this, vote Republican. If you believe in that, vote Democrat. And you cannot believe the effect it's having. It's amazing. These things, because it just takes a minute, for people to sit there and say, well, yeah.
Send that
the government
to me
doesn't
also.
get to take my guns, Yeah, and then they flip it over and they say, what? Democrats are for taking guns? What? Because they don't know. People do not know. It's amazing to me. So I just think the more people are educated, the more conservative they become. I think that's really the truth.
Well, Glenda, send that to me also, because I'd love to use it around here and even present it to our state chair and see if he wants to do something like that, because we're going to be going heavy on get the vote out.
Well, I will send it, and I'll send it, and I'll tell you this right now. I authored it. It is free to use. You use it, and you just flip people from blue to red. That's all I care about.
Oh, God bless.
That's all I care about. Royal and I are both veterans, and we both believe that what we're doing right now is our last duty to our nation.
Well, God
as
bless.
veterans.
Well,
Absolutely.
We're running down to our last 5 minutes, and when I was asked, when Mark Sanford was running for Congress back in 2012, I was asked by Amy Kramer to introduce him. I was there with no makeup, blue jeans, not expecting to speak to a crowd on camera. They had the news media all over the place. I had microphones and cameras shoved in my face, and I finished off with saying this thing by Dante. And I said, the hottest places in hell are reserved for those who, in times of moral crisis, maintain their neutrality. We cannot be silent no longer. The silent majority has found its voice, and we're coming for you.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Well,
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I believe you're absolutely correct.
Well, Glenda and Royal...
We're engaged in a cultural war.
We are.
Say that again, Royal.
He said we're engaged
in a cultural war that we have to win.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right.
People can find you at wh912.org. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to tell Curtis to get you back on the show a lot more. There's so many more subjects to talk about. But
whenever you want us to.
The
only night we can't do it is Thursday nights.
The only day we broadcast is Fridays. That's not a problem.
That's when we meet.
Fridays are the only days. I used to do it 2 days a week.
Well,
I'm down
thank
to
you
one.
for having us. You guys are awesome.
Thanks, Glenda.
Yes, thank you very much.
And thank you, Royal. God bless. Glenda White and
Royal. God bless y'all.
All right.
Y'all take care.
And Curtis, just a quick note before we exit out of here. On Friday, we're going to have former Congressman Tom Tancredo. We're going to have congressional candidate Nicole Miotakis, who's running out of Staten Island. Burgess Owens will be joining us, and Kim Clack, who's running for
candidate.
Kim Clack is running for that seat out of Maryland. So we have a great show lined up next week. And we will be on air the day after Thanksgiving, because I've got guests just lining up at the door waiting to come in. I want to thank everyone that has joined us today, and we will be back next Friday, Curtis, same time, same bat station. Until then, I say good night and God bless.
Y'all take care up there.
I'm praying for this land I love, America, America, the home of the free. But there are people making plans to change America. They've no respect for her or what matters most to me. That's why I stand for the flag and I kneel at the cross. For the friends I have loved and lost, and I still believe in God we trust, and the freedom our forefathers granted us. I hope it's not too late to say America.
90 seconds.
Do you hear is America. We've got to rescue her. You know it's up to me and you to see the truth behind their eyes. Don't change America. God bless America and the red, white, and blue. That's why
60 seconds.
I stand for the flag and I kneel at the cross. Long for the friends I have loved and lost. And I still believe in God we trust. And the freedom our forefathers granted us. I hope it's not too late to save America.
Seconds.
That's why we stand for the flag and we kneel at the cross. For the friends we have loved and lost. Then we still believe in God we trust. In the freedom our forefathers granted us. We know it's not too late to save America. Save America. Let's save America. Together we can save America.
Thank you for